Right, hello, welcome to the latest episode of the TLW Time Team. Hosting as always, I'm Dan and I'm joined by two guests for this special. I'm joined by John Gallagher, TLW's left peg.
Hi, Dan.
And the host, who is not hosting today, Mr. Chris Smith.
Yeah, I'm TLW's backup left peg.
So
TLW's second best left peg.
I think what we should probably do, actually, why we've got you, Chris, how are you finding the World Cup? Obviously, it's being hosted in your neck of the woods.
Yeah, I'm enjoying it a lot more than I thought I would, to be honest. It's the tournament, I think it's been pretty good. I think that there's been a lot of interesting games and stuff, some good stories. It's been fun seeing the host nations do really well. I'm hoping that all three of them can go as far as they can. I've actually found myself rooting for the US team a little bit because, unlike in previous years, they actually seem like a really good bunch of lads. They're playing some good stuff. They've got some good players who are in really good sort of competitive teams around Europe. And enjoyed the game last night, hoping they go as far as they can. I'm obviously hoping in Mexico lay a altitude beating on those England bastards on Sunday night as well.
And I'm sure Leo Messi still not visited the mix zone.
No, I don't think he has. No, although I'm not involved in any of that. Just enjoying watching this as a fan.
And you weren't going to watch any of it, John. You've not spoke much about the games. I'm guessing that you stuck to that.
I have not watched a second of anything, Dan. Not even highlights, nothing. I've just totally zoned out from it. I mean, keeping an eye on the results, and there was one situation last night that nearly sort of made me backtrack on that. Was when England went 1-0 down, but so I thought that would have been quite the story. But I was on a 3-hour walk at the time, and obviously they came back and won in the end. But it did definitely prick me interest slightly for a short period of time. But yeah, I don't even know why I'm not watching it now. It's like I'm trying to prove something to myself. I think just like trying to get through the whole summer without watching. I mean, the whole World Cup thing. Oh, Chris is over there, but maybe it's better than what was expected, but. Just from the outset, that poor referee, the situation with him, just left a bad taste, and that sort of strengthened me resolve not to watch it, even more. But from what Chris is saying about the USA and I've heard Mexico have done some good things and that, and they look like a good attacking team and stuff. I might give in by the when it gets to the serious stuff, but yeah, I'm comfortable with my decision not to have watched anything of any team so far.
I think for me, Dan, one of these things I'm trying to do at the moment is, it's America's 250th birthday on Saturday, and it's also kind of like shrouded in sort of disgust and disappointment, and everything is like Trump casts such a shadow all over everything that you almost don't want to get yourself involved with it, or you don't want to enjoy it because he's just so associated with everything. And I think I've had like a little sort of realization in the last few weeks that I shouldn't allow him to frame it. Like, there is a lot of good things that happen here. Like, there are a lot of good people. There are a lot of good people fighting the good fight. Like, I've got, so many of my friends and family over here obviously are American. So, it's the work is to separate yourself from the shit elements of the country and to try and celebrate the things that you enjoy about it. And there's still plenty of them. And I think, I've kind of taken the same attitude with the World Cup, really. I was as disgusted as John was, really, with the situation with the refereeing, the ticket prices, the way the Iranian team has been treated. It's disgusting, really. All really just stomach-churning stuff. But at the end of the day, we're all football fans as well, and there's a lot of good football being played, and there's a lot of good moments being created, and it's been an enjoyable tournament so far. So, I went into the tournament in a similar vein to John, not thinking I'd be interested at all, but I found it quite enjoyable for those reasons.
Very, very interesting for me both. I've watched as much as I can, but it's football, and I just feel like after the season that we had to endure last time, enjoying football where I don't have to care about the result too much has been something that I've enjoyed, and there's been quite a few good games as well. However, the reason that we are gathered here today is not to talk about the World Cup. I just thought I'd mention that why I've got you, Chris. This is a very special episode, something that you both know that I've been pushing for a while. This is the kind of part 2 of the Houllier treble that me and John are doing. And speaking of treble, it's about the 2000-2001 season. Now, if we cast our minds back to August the 19th, 2001, when that season kicked off, like to me, as at the time someone who was, I was still 16. Yes, I was 16. That was a huge time in my life. I just started college. I just got my GCSE results, and by the time we rolled round to May, it was the most incredible thing I'd ever experienced as a football fan. And there are some seasons where I still think that it is. Obviously, we've been lucky enough to win the league just 12 short months ago. We've won 2 European Cups. But I don't ever think that the shine for me of my seeing us win the FA Cup for the first time, the Europa League or the UEFA Cup as it was at the time, seeing us win the Carling Cup, and then getting into the Champions League as well, which we'd so cruelly missed out on the season before. It's a very special season to me, this, and it's something that we don't really talk about very often, but with it being the 25th anniversary, it is back in the limelight, which is where I think it should stay. It was an incredible season, an absolutely fantastic achievement that may never be done again, certainly by a Liverpool team. So what were you guys thinking ahead of that season? Optimistic? Still a bit bummed out at missing out on the Champions League? Did you think we recruited well? I'll open that to you. You go first, John.
Well, yeah, it was a bit of a downer from the previous season, missing out on the Champions League, obviously not knowing what was going to come. But I don't think we started the season particularly well. That season, I think we narrowly beat, ironically, Bradford in the first game, didn't we?
Made hard work of it.
Ironic, yeah, after what happened in the May, just 3 short months before. I mean, the signings, it was the Barnby situation was quite funny how all that panned out. The Everton fume was a major stench in the air throughout the summer in that one. And I can't say I was ever a big fan of Barnby when he was at Everton. I know he was the best player at the time, but I wasn't someone I thought, oh yeah, he's going to make a massive difference. So Gary McAllister one was a bit of a curious one again, but what do I know? Signing 35-year-olds from Coventry. Well, sort of Babel. I mean, that the Babel one was the sign. Was, oh my God, we were sort of the beneficiaries of a Bosman.
Instead of losing out like we did with McManaman.
After losing McManaman, yeah, the year before. So, he was one of the most highly rated defenders in Europe as a centre-back at Bayern Munich, if memory serves me right. But obviously, as the season went on, he was just an absolute machine at right-back, wasn't he? He made that position his own as the season went on. Bernie Diomed, bless him, he was I remember his debut was it was all action down the left-hand side against Sunderland, I think it was.
Overhead kick that hit the post.
Yeah, that was it.
It was off the line. It was off the line.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was in though. I remember I was behind the goal that day and it was in. I remember it really well.
Yeah, but he looked a really good signing at the time. Just didn't work out for whatever reason. But I always remember that summer I was working away in the holiday parks and there was some Saint-Étienne fans there, like French exchange, students who were working on the holiday park, and I asked them about him. I said, oh, very good player. Obviously you think, oh, okay, but it just didn't work out for him. Ziege was another one that was what you think of what left back, that's what we needed, someone with a bit of sort of power and finesse and good delivery. A
left foot equivalent to yours, John.
Yeah, well, even I was quicker than Ziege though, let's face it. But again, just didn't work out. He was lazy, it was just a sign that didn't work out. But at the time when we signed him, he signed like a player who'd played really well the year before for Middlesbrough, and you could see the logic in signing him. So you're looking at sort of cautiously optimistic, if you like. I mean, I don't know what I was expecting going into that season after the year before. I'd have probably just maybe Champions League qualification and a good cup run would have been. Well, we've gone what would have been 6 years. It was going into the sixth year, wasn't it, without a trophy at that point. So you're thinking, come on, got to end this duck at some point. You know, United were sweeping all before them at the time. Having done their own treble a couple of years before, and it just felt like something had to give, and we had to sort of start creating our new history in our era, if you like, at the time.
Chris?
Yeah, I'd just go along with what John said, really. I think I was a little bit more optimistic going into the season than he was. Obviously, what Michael did the season before had given us serious cause for hope on that front. He was consistently brilliant. And the signing of Heskey the previous March, he hadn't really shown much in his first sort of 10 or 15 games after he'd signed, but there was enough there to make you think that once he hits the ground running with a pre-season, he could do the business. So I was actually really enthused by the Nicky Barmby signing. I thought that was exactly what we needed at that time. And he turned out to be quite a sort of crucial player for us, really, especially during this season, and scored, a bunch of important goals, especially on some of those cup runs as well. I think he scored in like most rounds of the UEFA Cup run, and was really important in that respect. And obviously we built that platform at the back with Sammy and Steph, and Cara was coming through well at that time as well. So adding Marcus Babbel to the mix was really encouraging to me. And although the Gary Mack signing was a curious one at the time, I have to mention this, that John, do you remember? You probably remember this as well, Dan, but Dave wrote in the fanzine that if we signed him, he'd show his arse at the first game at Anfield. Do you remember that?
I do, yeah.
Yeah. And he never did. He never did. He backed out because he said he was told by a steward that if he did it, he'd get thrown out. But yeah, it's there in black and white if you go to one of the early issues of the Liverpool Way fanzine.
Would have been maybe issue 10 of TLW, maybe, or something like that. It would have been at the time, yeah. If anyone wants to go through the archives there.
Yeah, there you go.
So just to zip... Sorry, Chris, do you have something else to add?
No, go ahead, mate.
I was just going to say, just to zip in with the transfers that we made that summer, we signed Diomed from Auxerre for 3 million, Gary Mack on a free from Coventry, Peggy Arfexad on a free from Leicester, Marcus Babbel on a free from Bayern, memorably Nick Barmby from Everton, Ziege from Middlesbrough for 5.5 million. Obviously, he made a huge impression because in September we brought in Vignal for 500,000 from Montpellier. In November we spent 1.3 million on Daniel Sørland from West Ham. On the 7th of December we brought in Dene Biscan for 5.5 million. And in January, which I'll come to about this later on, we got Jaira Littmanen on a free transfer. On the outs, we shipped out Stig-Inge Bjørneby, Phil Babb. David Thompson went to Coventry for 2.75. Don Matteo went to Leeds for 4.75. Brad Friedel went to Blackburn in November. And then we also moved along Rigobert Song. Steve Staunton went back to Villa for the 14th time. Eric Meyer went to Hamburg. Titi Kamara went to West Ham. Hacker Ingi Gunnarsson went to Keflavik. Can't remember him particularly, but there you go. And later on in the season, John Newby went to Bury. So it was kind of, if you look at that, obviously at the time there's a fair bit of money being spent there, but when you look at how busy we were the summer before, we've obviously had a look at the free transfer market and identified some very smart business there, particularly obviously as we found out McAllister, because everyone's eyebrows were going at the time, mine included, and I'm sure Carlo Ancelotti's was as well. My eyebrow was decidedly pointed upwards about that one. I thought that was a strange one, but as John's already said, if we look at August, I think if we do it month by month, it'd probably help us to recall where we were. We squeaked a 1-0 at home to Bradford on the first day, made heavy weather of beating those before we eventually brought them down. Heskey scored the winning goal. So on the 19th of August, as you both know, I like to test your memories. So can either of you tell me what the number one song in the UK was on the 19th of August 2000 when the season kicked off?
No, nothing's got me on that one, Don.
What about like
Venga Boys. I always think that if it's a summer track, it'll be Venga Boys.
You're not a million miles away.
Okay.
Robbie Williams something?
Oh,
She's
No.
the one, Robbie Williams.
No.
not a bad show.
It was I Turn to You by Mel C.
I can't even remember the song.
It's a banger. It's a banger.
I think
song.
Is it?
Mel C and Robbie Williams had sex, so I think I get some credit for that.
So by kind of DNA.
Turns into the gossip column here of the Daily Star on the podcast.
Yeah, I didn't know we was doing the 3am Girls podcast.
That would have been a thing at the time, actually. 3 a.m, wouldn't it? Yeah, Daily Mirror.
It was, yeah. That's why Joanne wanted to be a journalist, so she could be a 3am girl. Can either of you tell me what the number one film in the UK was at that time?
2000.
I would
I want to go
never have
again.
guessed it.
Summer blockbuster. It's going to be Mission Impossible, something or other.
No.
Armageddon?
I was
No,
98.
I think that was. I was going to say I thought that was the year before, but I think you might be right with 98. It was X-Men. I would
the
never.
Bryan Singer X-Men.
I would never have gotten that. You might get this, Chris. I knew this without thinking about it too hard. Sorry, John, you probably won't know this. Who was a WWF champion on August 19th, 2000?
August 19th, 2000. Triple H.
You had a choice of two, and you went with the one who I would have thought, but it was actually not. It was The Rock.
It was Rock then. All right.
Because it was in that time where the title kept changing hands because we can't be having Triple H. We can't be having Triple H not have the title for too long.
Yeah, I remember it well.
Yes, indeed. So if we look at the result in August, then we had that 1-0 win at home to Bradford. I get, and again, 2 days later, we had this discussion, John, didn't we? But 2 days later, we lost at Highbury, 2-0 to Arsenal.
I remember the game, yeah.
Yeah, and
Mr. Pole, you're going to say that.
Mr. Pole was the referee. Yes, Mr. Durkin was the referee for the first game. I remember the Lauren goal, and I remember us not really being too convincing before succumbing to a late goal. One thing I do remember, I remember the 3-3 draw at Southampton, which followed that, because we were 3-0 up and cruising, and managed to ship like 3 goals, 2 in the last 5 minutes, 2 to Mariam Pahars and 1 to Taha El Khalej. Bit of a mixed bag of us that we would certainly have expected to go to the Dell and win. Kind of, was there a bit of frustration from you guys? I remember being angry listening to John Aldridge on Radio City 96.7. I was listening to that match and listening to that go wrong and getting rather annoyed. Chris?
Yeah, I think there was a bit of a theme throughout that season of kind of, certainly in the early part of the season, of 1 step forward, 2 steps back. And I think the defeat at Arsenal was a little bit unfortunate because we, as you mentioned there, Mr. Pole, we were reduced to 9 men, weren't we, in that game? I think Arsenal had a man sent off as well, but it's just kind of one of those that you can just... Yeah, Vieira for that 2-footed lunge, I think, on Haman or Murphy, and then Haman was booked twice, but I think back then you could get it rescinded after the game, like for a second yellow, which you can't do now. But the 3-0 up against Southampton, obviously, you think you're cruising there, and just a bunch of like, I was watching the season review video recently. I was like, fucking hell, Marian Bahars. I haven't thought about him since that moment where he scored twice against us. So, it was, as you say, quite a sort of like patchy start to the campaign.
And it was typical of, like, because we didn't have a great start under Houllier the previous season either, did we? So, and when I look ahead at the results, we only won like 3 of the first 7. But if I don't want to skip too far ahead, September was a 3-1 home win against Villa. Can you remember who scored the Liverpool goals that day? Anyone?
Was it Owen Hatter?
It
No?
was.
Yeah. Yeah.
Go on.
Was that the game Luke Nillis broke his leg?
Ooh, I think you might be right.
I'm sure it was. Sure that was the game Luke Nillis broke his horrendous injury, I remember. I don't think he played again after that. I might be wrong, but yeah. Going back to Houllier with the you know, if I think if that was now, I meant to touch on this in the last pod that we did, Sam, but you know, like managers getting time. Like, there wasn't sort of, you know, considering who Houllier had took over, the English manager, Roy Evans, member of the boot room and all that kind of stuff. Like, would he have been under pressure now from the media, like the national media, more than he probably was then? Because I remember he was getting a bit of flack from me in St. John at the time, rest his soul, what's called the Frenchman, in a, you know, sarcastic undertone. You know, that was like, obviously, Roy Evans was Ian St. John's mate and all. That was obviously a bit of bitterness there of what happened and stuff. But just going back to the back end of the 98-99 season, where results are up and down, like mixed bag really, just no consistency at all. And we had you know, 2/3 of a good season, 99-2000. You know, one bad third at the start and the end, if you like. And then the start of this season as well, where results are a bit iffy earlier on. Like, would there be sort of any sort of like pressure under the manager now? It just goes to show how times have changed, if that makes sense. In terms of, you know, for the media, would they be getting, or even the fan bit? I don't know. Just something I've thought about a lot. Like, in terms of what would the move be nowadays with what Houllier was doing now, if that makes sense, or to be seen as though we can see what he's doing behind the scenes still as fans, and you've got to be patient. But like football now, it's all about results now, and managers don't get the time frame. There's not, like, the context is different, isn't it? It's all about the results here and now, and you know, the results are all that matters basically, and the sort of time frame involved isn't what you get nowadays, what it was back then, 25 years ago. What do you think about that?
Go on, Chris.
Yeah, I think you're probably right, John. Like, you only have to look at what happened last season to see how things quickly can turn and how quickly, you know, patience runs out. And this was from a man who'd won the league the previous year, and I think, you know, if you look back at some of those early Houllier campaigns, we weren't exactly playing free-flowing attacking football then either, were we? So, you know, if that would have probably come into it as well, the whole stylistic thing. But I do think that there was still that kind of sense that we were moving in the right direction. Like, we had a long way to come, and it was a long journey. And this season that we're talking about now was part of it. Yeah. And one thing I also noticed when I was watching the season in review video in research for this was, like, at the end of the September, they showed the league table, and we were only 3 points off the top. And after 7 games, we had 12 points. Man United were top, and after 7 games, they had 15 points. So I think it kind of goes to show as well that it wasn't that era of just pure perfection back there. Like, if you looked at the Premier League table in a Klopp Guardiola era, and you were on 12 points after 7 games, you could pretty much write off winning the league that year because they had 21, right? So it's like I think there was a little bit more margin for error during that period as well.
I think,
Dan?
Yeah, well, when I look at it, I think there was a lot of togetherness with the crowd and the teamwork. There was a few mutterings about Houllier in his first kind of half season when it went really, really bad at the end. But there was a togetherness, and I think even though there was a slow start, I don't think there was any prospect of the crowd turning anytime soon. And we don't turn very easily. We never have, even with Slot. You know, like, some of us saw the iceberg before others, but you know, like, there was never kind of any widespread dissent at the ground. The closest you got to that was with the booing, with the Rio substitution, and even that, I don't think it was so much the booing of the substitution. It was just an excuse to boo So if that makes sense. But I think what you're saying is right, John. There would be more scrutiny on him, and maybe there would be a bit more terrified shrieking in the press. I don't think that the press are as influential anymore. If there was social media around in '99 when we're losing 1-0
Yeah,
at
what would
home
the
to
online
Leicester,
fan base be like now, like with the 98, 99, 99, 2000 seasons, where we choked at the end, basically didn't score in the last 5 games? I think there'd be a lot more, if that was now, there'd be a lot more sort of murmurings, if you like, about the manager's positions. But again, it's just everything now, it's like the ready-made microwave meal, isn't it? It's like, you know, everything's got to be here and now in a lot of aspects of life, basically. But as you say, I think fans were a lot more like patient in general back then than they seem to be nowadays. Not Liverpool, just in general. I mean, just as a general observation, if you like.
life is now,
Yeah.
so to speak. No, it's now, so to speak. Without wanting to sound like a deranged policeman or someone doing a terrible Jimmy Savile impression. But I fully agree with what you're saying, mate. Yeah, there would be like back in the start of the millennium, if the newspapers got on your back, generally you was in trouble. Now people just don't really tend to bother with what the press say, and the terrified shrieking takes place on social media, of which there is no regulation or control. So anyone can invent 10 accounts to say the same thing 10 times, and it amplifies the noise. It's terrifying, really. But I don't think the club would have acted. I think Houllier was clearly the man. They'd heavily backed him the summer before and this summer as well. You know, I don't suppose Marcus Babbel will be on cheap wages, considering that he was a Bosman. So Houllier was backed, and I think there were because there was upward signs, even though we didn't quite get over the line. Me and you talked about the team perhaps not being quite ready.
But going back to the Heskey signing in the March, the season before, that definitely sort of upset the balance, because Kamara, Titi was like sort of a maverick, a bit of, a lot of flair about him, create a moment from Nottingham. We definitely wilted and suffered a little bit when Heskey come in the team, and Titi was sort of ostracised at that point, wasn't he? Just hardly got a game at all. He was getting a few minutes here and there off the bench, but he was like a fan favourite, wasn't he?
Yeah.
In that 99-2000 season. Remember the goal at Arsenal, brilliant goal against Coventry at Anfield, scoring against West Ham when his dad died. The goal against Leeds, the Tony Yeboah type goal. So he had those moments, and the team suffered when Heskey came in. Not straight away, but obviously the last 5 games, Heskey was in the team, I think, for probably all of them games, and we didn't score. So, what was Heskey, 10, 11 million, was he? So if you're spending that much money, would that have been our record signing at the time? And then the team wilts on the back of that. I'm pretty sure there were little murmurings, nothing too dramatic with the fans, but just the whole Heskey situation, Titi, being dropped and that. That was definitely a conversation being had at the time, I remember.
Yeah. He started this season really well, though, John, didn't he? Like, Heskey, he obviously gets the winner on the opening day. And then going into September, Owen gets the hat-trick against Villa. That game definitely made me glad that we got rid of David James. It was fun seeing him flail around for somebody else at the Kop end. But in that game, there was just a really brilliant assist for Owen's first goal, where Heskey takes it down outside the box and drives to the edge of the area and to the byline and puts that ball in for Owen. It's fantastic. And then a week later against Man City, he takes it down, turns, and he plays that perfect through ball through for Owen to, I think he scored with the outside of his boot as well. So it was like, he really, really started to flourish, and that partnership with Owen was really becoming profitable for us. And we still had Robbie to come back from injury in September that as well. So, it was all kind of looking up on that front. We started to gel as an attacking unit.
Yeah, ultimately, yeah. He did settle into the team come September, October that season, and it felt like, was it the sort of October, November, he sort of really kicked into gear then, didn't he? Felt like he was scoring every game at one point. For the best part of 3 and 4 months, he was probably our best player, wasn't he? He was the go-to guy, it felt like, at the time in some cases, even more so than Owen. It felt like, he really grew into the shirt, didn't he, at that point?
That game was refereed by Mr. Barry, by the way. If we like the next game, so that was a midweek game, wasn't it? And Liverpool against Man City was next up, which was a Saturday afternoon, 3:00. I remember that very well because I was there. I didn't get to lots and lots of games early in the season, but I did get to that one. We actually fluffed a 2-goal lead. George Weah scored for City, like Owen and Didi put us 2-0 up, and then Weah pulled one back, and Kevin Horlock scored a penalty before Haman then scored in response pretty much straight away.
God, when you see in City having players like Kevin Horlock, and he's just like, fucking hell, that was a different time, that wasn't it? Jesus Christ.
Yeah, what's Ike Immel doing
Paul
these
Dickhoff, I
days?
just remember that City team as well. I think Alfie Haaland played as well, if I'm not mistaken.
Nicky
Yeah, he
Weaver.
won a penalty for them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Weaver. And you see what it is now, yeah. It's chalk and cheese, isn't it?
I think Steve Howie played in that game, Pet. We actually, September was actually a bit of a frustrating month after that. We drew 1-1 at West Ham and drew 1-1 at home to Sunderland. We had problems against Sunderland, didn't we? Like, they used to generally leave Anfield with a point.
Yeah.
We'd batter them and they'd manage to sneak one and we'd get one, or it would be 0-0. I remember, because if you both remember,
that was Bernie's debut, wasn't it? That Sunderland game we spoke about earlier. It's Bernie Diomed's debut, wasn't it?
Yes, it was, yeah. And I don't know if I can't remember whether the 23rd of September was a Sunday or not, because this was the season where Prem Plus became a thing. If you remember that, the pay-per-view on a Sunday. You had to pay for the games on a Sunday, whether that be Liverpool against Sunderland or Everton against Coventry or Charlton against Leeds, and it had George Graham. George Graham was the pundit. Smile George was still alive. It was again different times, but I'm fairly certain that I can't remember, and I'm not going to find out whether or not the 23rd of September 2000. Was a Sunday. I have a feeling that was a Prem Plus game though.
Which one was this? Sorry, Dan.
The 1-1 draw at home to Sunderland.
It was a Saturday. That 100%. Yeah, it was definitely a Saturday.
It wasn't that game then, and we started October with a thumping 3-0 loss at Chelsea, which is not somewhere we've ever done particularly well. It feels to me. I know Jurgen's record there was really good, but we got a good gubbing. The own goal by Vesterveld. Hasselbanks, as always, scored against Liverpool. 2-0 down after 11 minutes. And the diving, degenerate albino gambling addict finished the game off to make it 3-0 after 71 minutes. I don't remember that, to be honest, but it was just before an international break. So
who's this? Good Johnson?
That's at Chelsea. Yeah, that's who I meant.
No
yeah.
shit.
No. That surprised me. I didn't know he was at Chelsea that early, because you associate him with the miss in 2000, the chance in the last minute. But that shocked me that he was there as early as 2000. I genuinely
That was
can't
his
remember.
first goal for them.
What else is new?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Liverpool enabling bums since I can't even tell you when.
Especially Chelsea ones, Kasaragi as well.
Oh yeah, we talked about that last time, didn't we? Yeah. As well as Stefan Guivarch.
Yeah.
So, any kind of thoughts about that run that we want to go on, or should we just move on to a brighter October?
Well, see, this is the thing, isn't it? It was a bit of a mixed bag, as I think Chris touched on a few minutes back, and there were murmurings about how sort of dour the football was at the time. I mean, this was like obviously days now, it's all about attacking football and this, that and the other, but there were definitely murmurings then about, because remember Carragher was playing central midfield at the time, And I think he was getting a bit of stick as well. That was seen as like a negative move. I think it might have been Carragher and Haman maybe playing centre midfield. And I remember Carragher was coming under a bit of scrutiny at the time for being in the team. He obviously ends up moving to left back at some point in the season, and so made the shirt his own then for the rest of the season. But he definitely played a couple of games in midfield around that time, and yeah, it wasn't too favourable for him at the time, I remember. But I think like the next game, I think that was when the game when the touch on next really kicked into gear. The season really sort of took off, if you like. Yeah,
because we absolutely battered Derby County up and down. Can you remember the goal scorers, John?
I remember Berger scoring an absolute going on about like the football. I remember Berger scoring like probably a 20-pass team goal. It might have been the last goal. Heskey scored a screamer. Did Heskey score 2? And Owens was that the game Owen got like a bad head injury and he had to get subbed early on? Was that one?
I think it was,
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
And Heskey scored a hat-trick as well.
Oh, he got a hat-trick, Heskey. Yeah. Oh, so it was Berger scored the last one, and I thought Heskey scored 2, so yeah. Berger scored, Heskey scored a screamer, didn't he? Like a rocket in the top corner, I remember. Berger scored like a sensational team goal, I remember. It's like 20-odd passes, and leaded it as he did. In the corner, didn't he, if I remember rightly, yeah.
That game was refereed by Steve Bennett.
Oh God, Steve Bennett, jeez, God.
I always, obviously, I call referees Mister, and I'm not always being serious when I do. Quite often the opposite, in fact. And the assistant head at my old school was called Mr. Bennett. So I always equated the two for no reason whatsoever. One was bald, one wasn't. One had a beard, one didn't, etc., etc. I don't know.
So, I mean, we would have probably been in a half-decent position in the league at that point anyway, despite the stop-start nature of it. But I think that Derby game, because Derby were like a decent side then, weren't they, if I remember rightly? They weren't mugs, weren't they?
No, they were... You'd have to go to Pride Park and you'd have to be careful.
Yeah.
Like, if you didn't turn up, you could potentially be in trouble.
We'd lost there a couple of years previously, hadn't we? I think on the day that it looked like Everton were going to go down, and they managed to, it was one of those last games of the season where they managed to stay up by the skin of their teeth, and we lost on the last day. I was at that one of the few aways I got to during that couple of years, but yeah, lost 1-0, I think.
They finished 17th that season, Derby, but well clear, 8 points clear of the doomed Manchester City and Coventry. So next game was a 1-0 win at Anfield against Leicester, settled by
Heskey
against his old team, yeah. And the next game, which we'll just go straight to, Liverpool 3, Everton 1. One we won't forget anytime soon due to Nicholas Barmby opening the scoring with an absolutely brilliant header.
Yeah. I remember that really well because Samuel L. Jackson was there. He was filming that 51st State movie with Robert Carlyle, and I was in the Anfield Road that day, and he was in the box like directly next door to the Anfield Road end. And just remember, it was pissing down for starters, and him singing "You'll Never Walk Alone," just absolutely loving it, scarf above his head. Like, that's most of us spent half of the game trying to get his attention and wave to him and that kind of stuff. But yeah, it always really stands out to me for that reason, and obviously the Derby goal, the Barmby goal, because he'd taken some serious stick from them, hadn't he, with the Die Nicky stuff. It was
didn't
really
he get a bullet
unpleasant.
in the post or something? Didn't he got a bullet sent? Yeah.
And the goal itself was just was it a deflected shot from Ziege or something, and it just lands on his head, basically just lands on his head and flies in the corner, and he does that big slide towards the corner flag and his bollocks nearly pop out of his shorts. It's a good job he had some tight briefs on that day, I tell you.
That goal was like worth the transfer fee. I mean, as I touched on earlier, maybe it was a subconscious thing because I used to love Davy Tomo, and he came in to take his position in the team ultimately, didn't he? So it might have been a little bit of that why I was like, but I mean, it was worth it just for that goal alone. What was it, 6-7 million quid, was it, something like that? You know, just that being in the ground for that moment. It wasn't the fact that it was at the Annie Road end as well, just made it even funnier. You know, and they had to, obviously the Evertonians had to witness it like directly in front of them. It would have been great at the Cop end, but just one goal, you want to be at the Annie Road end. It was that one, wasn't it?
Oh, one more thing, Chris, seeing as you're here. Would you like to kick Nicky in the bollocks?
Yeah, I think I actually would, actually.
The Evertonians certainly would. It was the first Merseyside derby at Anfield that millennium as well, and we actually contrived to lose the last one, hadn't we? So it was good to get. I mean, Everton actually scored not long after the Barnby thing. Kevin Campbell again, but we managed to see them off Heskey and a Berger penalty to get us home there. But that was kind of like that was like 3 wins on the spin, and then as this Liverpool team felt like it did early in that season, we went to Leeds and lost 4-3 the next game, and I was, now this was 100% a Prem Plus game, absolutely 100%. And I remember being pretty angry, and I was still relatively in my footballing infancy at that time. It was as angry as I can ever remember being watching a game of football at that time, considering that we were 2-0, 3-2 up, managed to fluff it and lose 4-3, and bloody Viduka scored all 4 of their goals. It felt like one of those games that we should never lose because we were so good defensively. You know, you go 2-0 up and you're thinking we're good here, and we really, really weren't, which made our cup win later in the season all the more impressive, I think. But any kind of thoughts on that game, or is it just me that has a stroke every time I think of that?
Let Chris talk about that if he wants.
Yeah, well, that was kind of the start of that few years of rivalry we had with Leeds, wasn't it? It was like it got quite fierce at that time. David O'Leary with his young lards that he'd talk about all the time, and you know that was kind of the nuclear, the genesis of that rivalry. Really, you 2-0 up, cruising, and it was a really tough one to. I remember it being a really, really tough one to swallow because it was a game we should have never have lost. But I think we hadn't quite developed that steel yet, and I think that was kind of a moment where they had a little bit of a coming to Jesus moment. We're like, come on, if we're going to be a serious football team, this can't happen anymore. And then towards the turn of the year, it kind of just stopped happening. They really did get their act together defensively. So I think it was possibly like quite an important moment in the season in terms of like sort of figuring out where we were at and figuring out where we were going and what needed to change if we were going to have success. And you know, it did flow in the end.
Anything that you want to add about it, John? Sorry, go on, mate.
Yeah, it was. It was just the context, wasn't it? I mean, the last goal where he sort of spun and turned in the box, and it's like, when Mark Viduka's turning, you've got to fucking look at yourself in the mirror, basically, haven't you? Let's face it. So, yeah, the defending wasn't great. I think that was the winning goal. Did he place it in the corner? But yeah, you know what Chris has said there about the sort of steel not quite being there. I mean, we had obviously top defenders, but just didn't have that cohesion at that point for whatever reason, consistently. But you know that sort of progressed as the season went on, when the games become more serious and nip and tuck, as when we got to like the February point in the season, when it was like high stakes for every game. But that was just a microcosm of that part of the season. We touched upon the Southampton game earlier, 3-0 up, and conceding 3 late goals and stuff, and there was like 1 or 2 others. The Chelsea one, what we've touched on, the 3-0 loss, and so yeah, there were sort of little flaws at the time, which just needed to be ironed out. But as Chris has said, that was sort of a turning point in terms of. I don't know, did Ziege play that game?
He scored.
Yeah, so I remember. So I don't know if it was that game when he sort of got, after that he might have got bombed out a little bit, and you know, I think Houllier just didn't trust him ultimately, did he? So I can't remember him playing too much in the second half of the season.
No.
You know, the thing was at Ziege, I don't know, he just didn't look fit, did he? Always looked quite sort of laboured looking, didn't he, in his style. You know, I don't know whether it was a fitness thing or whether it was just that he had that. I just didn't like he had that bit of arrogance about him that was misplaced arrogance. You know, I know Germans can't have that arrogance about them, but they generally sort of back it up. But he didn't really do anything to back anything up, did he?
No, it kind of always struck me as just a bit lazy.
Yeah.
You said laboured, which I thought was kind, but you know, at the time I remember people getting on his case for being a lazy bastard.
I feel like a director with the golf, because I've not actually mentioned cup games, but we was in that bloody many. It's not really a massive surprise. I can part the FA Cup for a little bit, but I forgot to mention our ultimately unconvincing 1-0 aggregate win against Rapid Bucharest, and our pretty convincing 4-2 win over Slovan Liberec.
The only thing I remember about the Rapid Bucharest home game, I think Fowler and Owen played together, and you know, everyone wondered what they'd be like as a partnership, and they didn't get a kick either that night. Yeah, it was a dour game, but sort of set the tone for a lot of the rounds throughout the competition, to be honest with you. Obviously more than made up for it in the final, but yeah, that was just like a dour 1-0 aggregate win over the two legs. Well, I do remember Fowler and Owen playing together in the Anfield game, and there was just nothing between them at all.
John, what do you make of Robbie during this season? Because he missed the start of it, and as I said earlier, it did give Owen and Heskey a chance to kind of form a productive partnership. And I felt like when he came back into the team, it wasn't quite a fit anymore. There were like constant rumours about his future, about him leaving the club, which didn't end up transpiring for a little while at least. But I also think that when he came back in, it was slightly different. It always felt to me like he was like trying a bit too hard, and it wasn't as instinctual as he had been previously. Like, is that just me, or did you think there's something in that?
Yeah, I think I touched upon this in the last pod. I think Houllier would have heard all these things about Fowler, the precocious talent, etc. But when Houlier's come in, Fowler still had moments in that like half a season, 98, 99, but he just brought headaches to Houllier more than anything else on the pitch, if that makes sense. He had obviously the stuff getting assaulted. I mean, it can't be helped, I suppose. But why is he in town? You know, late at night, and he's getting assaulted in a toilet in some bar in town, and then he's got the Graham Lasso situation with the homophobic gesture, if you like, and the line sniffing. So Houlier's making sadly a clown of himself, going on about Rigobert's song, like eating the grass at Mets or whatever. It's like, so Houlier's putting himself out there. Fowler's getting fines here, there and everywhere for different reasons. And yeah, I don't think Houllier just took to him straight away. Houllier wanted that professionalism. Michael Owen was his sort of prototype player, I suppose, wasn't he? You know, he's goody two shoes. He was dedicated to training, and Fowler's sort of coming out the end of the Spice Boy era, if you like. Houllier got rid of a lot of them pretty early doors, like Ruddock, James, etc. But with Fowler, I just don't think he ever sort of garnered Houlier's trust, and he had the bad injury in 99-2000 and pre-season. And I just don't think it ever took off for him. But, he still contributed during the treble season with some vital goals. And two of them were nearly winners in cup finals. Sadly for Robbie, that it just didn't quite happen because, obviously, Birmingham equalised. And then Alaves equalised, in the UEFA Cup final. So just a little moment for Robbie that would have maybe could have cemented him, I don't know, but I just got the impression Houllier just wanted him out early on, but because of he wasn't in the sort of position with the fans or probably until the following season when he won 3 cups and we were, back in the Champions League where he was in that absolute position of strength where he could make it happen. But there was things going on all the time. You had the pre-season thing with Phil Thompson, didn't you, the following year? And that sort of played out to his departure then a few months later. But yeah, so I think Houlier's probably just seen him being a bit underwhelmed, what he's seen and stuff, even though he'd still have amazing moments. But as I say, Owen, he had that sort of the England thing then with Owen and Heskey, didn't you? That was like seen as the partnership for England and stuff before Rooney came on the scene and that. So Owen was like Houlier's sort of, he doesn't go out, he trains hard, he wants to do well and stuff, and yeah, so I just think ultimately that was how it all pans out.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, that's a good analysis, that, John. We beat Coventry 4-1 the week after. We'd actually also started our Carling Cup campaign as well. We beat Chelsea after extra time at Anfield in a game I don't actually remember. I know Fowler got the winner, but I don't remember that game at all personally. And the attendance was actually 29,370, which now is totally unthinkable. But the Carling Cup was seen as a obviously for us it was a chance to get a leg up, but it had been dismissed by the Arsenals and Manchester Uniteds of the world as a bit of an inconvenience for quite a few years at that time, and I think that had filtered down to a lot of people. Correct me if I'm wrong with that, but that's certainly how I remember it at the time.
You're right, Dan. Yeah. I mean, for us it was the avenue to a trophy, and you're beating like one of the best teams in the league on your way, to get to what would have been the last 8 at the time. Knocking Chelsea out, and it opens up a bit for you then, doesn't it? But that Coventry game you touched on, the only thing I remember of that game, I think Heskey might have scored 2 again, I'm not sure. But just Davy Tomo's goal, just like giving the V-sign to Houllier and Phil Thompson in the dugout. That's like the main overriding memory of that game, I remember.
There was a bit of a theme throughout this season of like players scoring against their old clubs. Like Heskey scored against Leicester, celebrated. Gary Mack scored against Coventry in that game, celebrated. Nick Barmby celebrated, obviously. Don Hutchinson scored against us for Sunderland, celebrated. Davy Tomo scored against us for Coventry, obviously celebrated with that great big... I remember it was so funny, like he banged it in, he ran back to the halfway line, turned to Houllier, threw his arms at him and went, fuck off. Because obviously Houllier had pretty much chased him out of the club, hadn't he, really, I suppose? Like, just determined he wasn't good enough, like wanted shut of him. And he was a tidy little player, Davy Tomo, as well, wasn't he? He's like...
tenacious, wasn't he?
Yeah, he's no mug, and local lad as well. And, it was kind of a shame to see him go. Probably on the balance of things, he wasn't the career he went on to have. He wasn't that top draw player, but he was, handy for us. And, I think I remember there being you'll remember this as well, John, like there being like applause around the ground when he banged it in as well.
Yeah.
So a bit of appreciation for him there.
Yeah. Don't particularly remember this game, but a 2-1 loss at Tottenham followed. We actually went 1-0 up and conceded twice, which again, not what you would expect of that team that had built itself on a solid backbone. And we lost 2-1 at Newcastle, which I do remember. Because I remember not only Norberto Solano scoring, but Kieran Dyer, who was a player I really wanted to sign when he was at Ipswich. But he went to the Goldfish Bowl, as he described it himself.
So this is it. So we've lost 2 league games there in a week.
And 3 and 4.
Yeah, so you're looking at it, that's what I mean. It could have been on a little bit of a precipice at the time, how things actually went that season, because, losing... It feels like every couple of minutes we're speaking about a loss of some description, so we probably lost like 5 games by Christmas, I was a thought, without looking into it. So you're looking at, that amount of defeats already.
My theory, John, is that it took us a while to get our head around UEFA Cup on Thursday and Premier League on Sunday. I seem to remember us struggling on Sundays quite a few times that season. So I wonder if that was it. and because around that game, where was that Newcastle game was the 26th of November, but bloody Black November again, and we played Olympiacos in Greece the midweek and drew 2-2, and as you've already rightly said, Nick Barmby scored in that game as well. You identified he scored quite a few goals. We also managed to absolutely destroy Stoke City 8-0 in a midweek Carling Cup game. Well, all Carling Cup games are midweek, so that's a silly point to make. Apart from the final, obviously. So yeah,
I don't want to be pedantic, Dan, but it was actually the Worthington Cup then.
Oh, was it?
Sorry.
It's all right. You just deal with that siren outside your house, John.
Oh yeah.
It's the bill.
Red Hollis.
Dan sent him round for you having the temerity to correct him on something.
You think I'll correct me on my own podcast, John? If we move to December, then, which it's got a couple of red marks in it. Started the month off with an emphatic 3-0 win at home against Charlton. Although we only scored 2 goals late on to and I remember that actually. Mark Fish scored an own goal after 5 minutes, if you remember him. South Africa's finest.
Didn't he do the weather?
Michael Fish did the weather.
Fish.
Oh.
Don't edit that out, Dave. And then we have a cup game. And like I said, I'm going up and down here. It's difficult to keep up with the cup. We played Olympiacos in the midweek and beat them 2-0 at Anfield. No real difficulties with that. I get quite a low crowd again, though. When you look, 35,484. Not a massive crowd.
What was Anfield's of old then? Was it being
45, wasn't it?
44, 45,
Yeah.
Was it being at that point maybe, yeah.
There's like Carling Cup games with 41 at Anfield, and we'll go for the last home game, and that's 43, so it looks like it's 43, 44 around about there, mate, you're right. So the next league game we lost 1-0 at home to Ipswich. Ipswich had a really good season that season. They finished just behind us. Now they are always, to me, the standard bearer of a team that overachieves and really suffers for it the next season, kind of like Forest did last season to a lesser extent. But Ipswich are always the worst case. Europe one season, relegated the next because they didn't have the squad. Can you remember the goal scorer, John?
Marcus Stewart,
yeah. And I said that was like 4 losses in 6.
Well, yeah, I know. Yeah. So I don't know where we would have been in the league at that point, but I'm assuming it would have been, I don't know, like
5th, something like
5th,
that.
Okay, right.
Yeah, 5th, 6th.
Yeah, 5th, 6th. So it's like, not a million miles away from. It was still top 3 then, the Champions League, wasn't it? So, but there's still a little bit to be concerned about. I'd love to just go back in time to that Ipswich game. I remember being at the game, but I can't remember what the reaction was at the final whistle. Was there any booing or murmur boos or anything? I can't remember. But
I seem to remember it being dissatisfied silence, to be honest.
Right, okay.
Just glum.
Do you remember, didn't George Burley get Manager of the Year that year?
He did.
Even though Gerard had won the 3 trophies and got us into the top 3 or whatever, top 4 or whatever it was. I remember being really pissed off about that.
Yeah, you're right.
He did, yeah. And don't get me wrong, it was a fantastic achievement, but not as fantastic achievement as winning 3 cups and getting into the Champions League. Midweek, I'm sorry, I'm all over the place here again, like a golf editor, like a golf director. Midweek 3-0 after extra time victory against Fulham. So we went bonkers in extra time in front of a crowd of 20,000.
Wow.
20,000, and it's not like I don't know why the crowds were so like. It must have been the Carling Cup just being seen as this undesirable competition in comparison to the others at that time.
I think it was this kind of pre-football boom, Dan, as well. I think it was it becoming the thing to do again. Do you know what I mean? Like,
I suppose so, yeah.
I think I remember going back a little bit before that, being at games League Cup games or European games where there were like 12 or 13,000 people at Anfield for those games. Like,
Yeah.
you know, it wasn't uncommon for those League Cup games or European games against minnows to be quite sparsely attended. And I think it was only when they started sort of bringing in the fact that you have to go to multiple games to qualify for finals that stuff really kind of picked up a bit.
That's very interesting, actually, the whole concept of loyalty. Because I remember, and we'll come to the Barcelona game later, but I was stood in the queue for all day to get my Barcelona ticket. And I got there at 6 in the morning because it was like it was an auto cup ticket. You had to go and queue. So the next game is one that I remember very well. It was a 1-0 win at Manchester United, which didn't happen very often to us in the 90s, the last millennium. So we got off to a good start against them. We threatened to beat them in the cup game previously, when Houllier said, and I said it in the last podcast, and I'll say it again, John, we will beat Manchester United. And we did, thanks to Gary Neville's strange decision to try and act like a rugby league fullback, I was going to say, try and catch the ball at the point and just charge on, but for whatever reason he used his arm. Great free kick from Murphy. We didn't. I seem to remember us pretty comfortable in that match. Correct me if I'm wrong, but
that United team was obviously a so brilliant team, but they sleptwalked the way to the league that year. I don't think it was one of the vintage United sides. They were sort of coming off the edge of the Treble team from a couple of years before, when things are just, we'll have had it in the 80s on the sides, just on the wane a little bit, and some amazing things, but there's still formidable outfit, obviously. But I remember the game. I remember Luke Chabot got sent off late on, didn't he, for dragging Vladdy down, didn't he? But on a counter attack. But you remember that cup game that you touched on when we lost the cup game? Like, it was all hands to the pump, wasn't it? We were just defending for our lives, and it was one of the rare moments that season when we put our bodies on the line, under massive pressure for pretty much the whole second half of the cup game. But I do remember that league game being sort of, you think, I can't remember feeling under any massive pressure, at any particular point. So that was when, you might have looked at it and thought, the side is beginning to grow and just have that bit of defensive resilience about it and a bit of know-how and savvy about it.
Yeah. For me, this was the game that defined the season in a lot of ways in terms of what we went on to achieve. As John says, having that little bit of defensive steel, and the fact that Gerard had obviously had a game plan that had beaten Ferguson on that day, right? It was like it had been a while since we'd had a manager who could go toe-to-toe with him tactically and outfox him and certainly come away from there with a result. I think it was the first time in about 8 or 9 years that we'd gone there and won, at least. Was it 91, 92, the previous 1990, yeah. So
10 years, yeah.
So 10 years since we'd gone there and won, and that was something that you felt, wasn't it? Really, us lads the age we are growing up, that was our teenage years, pretty much, those 1990 years, and going there and just having heartbreaking defeat after heartbreaking defeat and thinking you're going to get a win, and then Eric Cantona in his comeback game gets that fucking cheap penalty and levels it up right at the end, and obviously that FA Cup defeat, which was, we were ahead after 3 minutes in that game, I think, weren't we? And I think we led that game for something like 85 minutes or something, and having that snatched away from you, and you did wonder whether we'd ever go there and win again. And that was the start of doing it 3 years in a row, I think, wasn't it? All 1-0 wins and all Danny Murphy with the winning goal. So I think, and I mentioned earlier on in the episode that, some of those defeats that we had, the one against Chelsea, the one against Leeds, where we were giving up big numbers of goals, this was the turning point, I think. This was the day where Gerard Houllier as a manager and what he could bring for us in terms of his tactical acumen, in terms of his thought process, in terms of setting up a team to do a job, in terms of going to a big ground and winning. This was a real hallmark of his era, and we kind of kicked on from here, I think.
Yeah, it was a statement result, wasn't it? And we had another one the next week where we played against Arsenal, and just before Christmas, my dad described it as a rope-a-dope. We just counter-attacked on them on several occasions, and we beat them 4-0. Like the season before, we'd absolutely battered them, but only won 2-0. This season, we was a bit more conservative, and with a crowd of 44,144, by the way, we absolutely swatted them on the break time after time again. Gerard scored a brilliant goal in front of the Cop in the first half.
Yeah, that set the tone, didn't it? Because we scored early against them, and we could play that way then. So, it was a brilliant strike with the Cop end, wasn't it, by Gerard? And yeah, we played. We were comfortable playing a little bit on the back foot by them. We'd set, as Chris has just touched on about, Gerard being able to set the team up, and we had the players to obviously hurt them then, on the counter attack, which we did, absolutely brilliantly, 4-0. It was Arsenal with a, excellent side themselves in their own right at that point as well.
Yeah, that was Arsene Wenger's Arsenal. So obviously there was a high quality team, and we had them off. Got a nice revenge for that 2-0 loss earlier in the season, which was a bit manic and chaotic. Boxing Day.
Just want to touch on something about that Arsenal game, mate, as well. Those two results happened in the space of 6 days. The Sunday against Man United, and then the following Saturday. I think it was a Saturday morning kickoff.
It was an early kickoff, wasn't it? Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
And I remember getting back from, when I was travelling up from Shrewsbury, getting back, the early kickoffs were kind of good because you'd be back in town like 6 o'clock, and then you could go down the pub and And I remember walking into the Red Lion, a pub that's no longer there in my little village, and like one of my dad's friends saying to me, "Oh, you've had a good week, haven't you?" And I was like, "Yeah, I fucking have." And it's some of those things that kind of stay with you a little bit, because growing up in the period we did that, you did feel like they were a few and far between. But that was one of the best weeks I can ever remember experiencing. Going to Old Trafford and winning, and then smacking Arsenal 4-0 and thinking your team's on the up, and it's just before Christmas, and you go in the game every week, and it just felt like a fun time to follow us, despite the invariable setbacks, which we're going to get onto right now.
Yeah, happy Christmas. Losing 1-0 to a Christian Carambo inspired Middlesbrough. Was that the ice on the ball game?
It was, yeah.
Yeah. Absolute nonsense from a goalkeeper who was, as time went on, was exposed as not actually being very good. But yeah, that was the ice on the ball game, I thought so. Go on, John.
Yeah, I think that was... Westerveld sort of spilled a shot, didn't he? And it was a Carambo scored.
Yeah.
And Westerveld come out with the excuse after the game that there was ice on the ball. Now Middlesbrough, I went to Middlesbrough how many 6 times I think I went there, from any time from August to the game was always in November, December every year I went, but I never seen us score a goal at Middlesbrough ever.
Jeez.
They were a decent side, but you think you're gonna see us score a goal of some description against them. But yeah, whether it was August first game of the season, 2005, 2006, or it's always November, December games. It was always absolutely fucking freezing up there, no matter what time of year you went. And but that was the excuse, and I wonder if even then, sort of the Houllier had a sort of sowed the seed in Houlier's mind at that point that he did need to improve the goalkeeper situation, even as early as December that season.
Yeah, for me, Westerveld, I'll talk about a moment in the Roma game later on, but for me, Westerveld was a problem at that point. He wasn't making loads and loads of mistakes, it was obvious that he was not going to be able to be we needed him to be.
Where would you place Westerveld if he was a Premier League goalkeeper now? And you're the goalkeeping sort of
now.
Yeah, what kind of
Kepa.
Keeper would he be now?
Kepa. Yeah.
Okay.
Is Kepa or him and Pickford made a lot of similar Pickford makes mistakes that Westerveld made.
See, I remember. I think I didn't associate him making absolute howlers, if that makes sense. Not many of them, but when he did make them, they were absolute risks, because obviously the 2001-2002 season, obviously made one against Bolton early doors. I know we're sort of going off into another season here, but I think it was that week we actually signed Dudek and Kirkland, wasn't it? We made the mistake in the last minute against Bolton, so... but I just wonder what point did Houllier thought, no, this isn't good enough. This, we do need like better in this position. Would it have been as early as that Boxing Day mistake? Because I don't remember him making many mistakes before that, even though we'd had like some defeats in the run up to that Middlesbrough game. But was there something there where Houllier seen, the type of goals we're conceding, and whether there was something not as in your face in terms of a howler, but things that could have been better?
The word I would use to describe him was unconvincing. And I think that's fair. I could go further than that, but I can't think of any kind of howling examples, because there's a fair few clean sheets in there, but I think what Westerveld did was... I can't remember many mistakes he made, but I can tell you many top saves that Alisson has made. And I'm not equating the two, because one's one of the greatest of all time and one's not. But like, top goalkeepers bail you out and win you games, and I can't tell you many games where Westerveld did that. And that's not fundamentally a criticism of him.
But see, this is it. But as the season went on that season, I'm not thinking any time between February and May we've got to improve on Westerveld. But Houllier, he's in a far more qualified position than any of us has ever be.
Yeah.
Excuse me, being a manager. But can you remember ever thinking, like, the back end of that season we've got to improve the goalkeeper situation from, like, December, January onwards? Wasn't a thing, was it, at the time?
I think my dad wanted him gone after the Alaves game, when he came for that corner and didn't get it and Cruyff scored.
But even though we won 3 trophies, are you thinking, Dan, even then? Like
no,
that?
No, because if you're winning 3, it wasn't a pressing issue, John. No, I agree. But I remember that goal and causing all kinds of havoc in my house. Effing this, F that, stick this effing pitchfork up your hole, blah blah blah, all that kind of stuff. He wasn't very impressed, and neither was I, to be fair. But I digress. We digress on this podcast. That's why we're just ourselves.
I think I don't remember wanting him gone or wanting him upgraded, because for me he was still a significant upgrade on what had come previously.
Yes.
Like, Brad Friedel went on to have a good career after he left Liverpool, but he was unreliable for Liverpool.
Yeah.
I hated David James with every fibre of my being, and still resent him quite considerably. And I thought Westerveld was a considerable upgrade on the clown show that we had.
But would that,
David James.
Would that have been because of the defenders he was playing behind? No, just let's say you put Brad Friedel, who was, as you've just touched on, he had a really good career. It was just, if you're looking at Premier League goalies, he's probably in the top, what would you say, 20, 25 maybe? I don't know, but his longevity, he wasn't a bum, was he? But we signed him, and we've got like Phil Babb and Neil Ruddock and jabronis like that playing for us. If you put Brad Friedel behind Hippier and Henshaw back then, what do you think we would have had the same sort of end result? Would he have been better than Westerveld? It's all ifs and buts, I know, but it's just something you do think of, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a really good point, actually, because, yeah, definitely. I think he just had a little bit of Friedel had a little bit of trouble settling as well, didn't he? I think we were his first club in England, and then after he left us, he went on, and is it Villa he went to straight away, and was excellent goalkeeper for them, so Tottenham, yeah. So, you're probably right.
But David James, I just think he had that inherently in him, didn't he? Regardless.
Yeah, David James was a walking mistake.
Yeah. I mean, he was like Pickford on stead. Pickford has those crazy moments. Just when you, what the fuck was all that about there? Like, James had that like concentration issue, which means, you can't imagine James in a serious team trying to win 3 trophies. No. When the stakes are high, he'd definitely cost us in some game. like one of those big games that season, just because that was inherently in him, I think.
And concentration is what separates
absolutely
a good goalkeeper from a great goalkeeper, and a great goalkeeper from an absolutely elite goalkeeper. So the start of the new year, 2001, we managed to beat Southampton on New Year's Day thanks to a late Marcus Babbel goal. We'd let the footballing luminary that is Tromdeagles Zoltvet score for Southampton. Few sore heads at Anfield because the attendance was 38,472.
I remember Gerard scoring an absolute howitzer that game as well.
Great goal.
The cop end, wasn't it?
Yeah.
One of his finest goals for us, that I think, when he just shifted it out of his feet, moved into the space, and just smashed it into the top corner. And there were 4 or 5 from him that season that were of that level, and it was like he'd become a man the previous season, but he was becoming the man that season. Like, just his body, his build, his aura, like everything about him was screaming, just like, I'm ready to take this fucking shit over.
Incredible footballer. I'm just shaking my head just at how good he was. Incredible player. We got our FA Cup. Now I have to look in 3 pissing columns. We got our FA Cup campaign off and running with a 3-0 win at home against Rotherham. Attendance of 30,689. We then we also had a first leg reversal in the Carling Cup. We lost 2-1 at Crystal Palace. Clinton Morrison put them 2-0 up. Vladdy scored straight away. And in between those 2 games, Clinton Morrison made the mistake of opening his big fat mouth.
I felt a bit sorry for him. I think it was I was sort of. I think it was a bit of a stitch up, and he was misquoted. I don't think he meant it. It's come across how he meant it, but the media like to jump on these things and make it something like it's not. But I agree. He's got a big fat mouth, admittedly, and his arrogance far belies his talent to get that. But in that particular instance, I do think it was a bit of mischief from the media.
It was nailed to the dressing room wall, though, and it definitely had the desired effect. But we'll come to that second leg in a minute because we've got about 14 games to get through first.
Was that the game Litman made his debut, that Palace away leg?
It's the next game, which was away at Villa Park, and I remember that very well, John, because I was the. I've not been to many away games because it's hard to get tickets. It's practically impossible these days. And my dad got a corporate from. My dad worked for Pilkington Glass all of his life, and one of his suppliers of glass, I must emphasise when I use the word supplier, was he had a box at Villa, so he summoned me and my dad, and we went for a pub lunch, and we sat in Villa Park, and Yara Littman absolutely ran Villa ragged. His appreciation for space, his ability to pass round the corner. I was mesmerised. I was absolutely mesmerised by how he played. He absolutely tore Villa to shreds. And my dad had gripped me before the game. He said, listen, he said, I don't know what we're looking at here. I think we're in with the Villa fans. So when we score, keep your cake hole shut. Anyway, I forgot what I was doing, and Danny Murphy scored, and I jumped up, and there was 3 or 4 of us. And the Villa fans were all absolutely, completely fair enough. But they were probably used to it, to be fair. If it was an executive kind of row of seats, that everyone was fine, no problems. But Murphy scored twice, Gerard scored again, and it was an incredible performance by Yara Littman, and absolutely incredible. I don't think he ever hit those highs again, but he just didn't take to. I don't think Houllier and him were a good match because of how we played, but in that game he was absolutely incredible. What a player he was.
Yeah.
It's one of those that.
Sorry, Chris, go on, mate.
Just a bit. It's one of those things you look back on and think what might have been with Littman, isn't it? Like, he had so much ability and so much talent. There was a lot of excitement when he arrived. I think we got him from Barcelona, didn't we?
Yes, he was a free transfer from Barcelona.
Yeah, and I just thought, like, similar to Fernando Morientes, I think as well. Like, one of those signs that you think, oh shit, this is gonna be fucking great, but it never quite came together. Although we do have some good memories of him as well. It just wasn't a fit, and for whatever reason, it just didn't work out, unfortunately. But sorry, John.
Yeah, no, I think we nearly could have signed him the year before, I think, couldn't we? But yeah, he's just one of them players who, yeah, just the sort of wrong time, wasn't it? You know, but he has all the talent in the world. Just a lovely, graceful, elegant footballer. As Dan said, there's appreciation of space and. Yeah, I'm sure he come on in that Palace game though, Dan. You know, a sub.
He might well have done. Maybe it was his first start at Villa Park.
His first start was at Villa. Yeah, I just vaguely remember him coming on when it was 2-0, I think, at Palace, and I'm sure he was involved in the goal that we scored. You know, they obviously lost 2-1, but yeah, just an incredible footballer. And yeah, it's a shame it didn't work out for him. But Houllier obviously had us tried and trusted front two at that point. I know he'd rotate in certain games, which was absolutely the right thing to do. I think the whole four-striker thing was a thing then, wasn't it? You know, United had to be, you know, there for York, Cole, Sheringham, Solskjaer and all that, you know, for a few years and stuff. And obviously that was what I think Houllier had seen that and thought, yeah, that's what needs to be done, especially when you're challenging on all fronts as we were at the time.
Yeah, yeah, squad rotation was a very important part of that with the amount of football that we played. It's always good to rotate your squad, isn't it, Arne? Anyway, we drew 0-0 with Middlesbrough at Anfield because, of course, we did. We can't help ourselves. We absolutely battered Crystal Palace 5-0. I mean, that match was probably made worse by the rent-a-gob in the Crystal Palace dugout. I know that some people quite fond of Neil Warnock. I think he was a fucking prick, and that's all there was to it.
Was he the manager then, was he? Warnock,
yeah.
Was he? Yeah, wow.
Yeah. I'm gonna. You're getting me doubting myself there, but I'm almost certain that he was.
I thought he was manager about 2010 or something. I might be wrong. I think that was a bit too early. He was at Sheffield United.
He was Sheffield United manager when we played them in 2004.
2003, wasn't it? The League Cup, yeah. Yeah. I don't know who the Palace manager was. I'm almost certain it wasn't Warnock. I might be wrong, but
I'm just checking now. I mean, my point still stands.
Yeah, all right, fair enough. You think he's a prick?
Yeah, agreed.
I quite like him, to be honest with you.
I'm mistaken. He didn't join Palace until 2007, but I'm not backing down. I was wrong about when he was there. I'm completely right with what I was saying.
Alan Smith was the manager in 2000.
Alan Smith, not the irritating commentator.
No, not the handball offside Arsenal striker from 1989 fame.
Was the guy who's always saying, "Where's the automated VAR skip?" That's a terrible Brummy impression. I can't do it.
That's what I meant to ask you, Dan. You're going on about your dad working for Pilkington Glass. Why didn't he work for St Helens Glass? St Helens Glass has the class.
He obviously didn't have the class.
It's just coming to my head, but your dad being a dyed-in-the-wool St Helens man, and he's working for Pilkington, not St Helens. Again, I digress, sorry.
Memorable radio jingles there. You'll be singing about buying a bike at Charnock Richards Cycles next.
Or John Leach at the Widnes Car Centre.
I can't remember what I was going to... Oh, yeah. Speaking of terrible Birmingham accents, it just reminded me of a story from when I was a young boy. And me and my friend were on holiday, and we were playing pool against two girls. And my friend was trying to impress them. I was kind of ambivalent, but my friend was trying to impress them. And I had my first go, and I ended up potting the black ball.
Got a go at trying to chat one of the girls up?
Well, I meant playing pool, actually. But
oh, right, okay.
Yeah, but my friend was more interested in that sort of thing than I was. And I accidentally potted the black ball. And this girl, she was a Brummie, saying, "You potted the black ball, you idiot." And these
that
two
was
girls...
a much better impression, Dan, to be fair, yeah.
I'm calling myself an idiot, yeah.
Jasper Carra would have been proud of that one.
And these two girls just got straight off. And my mate went, "Nice one, dickhead." Like that would have made a difference, the fact that
Sounds like a bit of a core memory for you, that, Dan. Hello.
Hello, Dan. We lost Dan.
He's got off. There's
Oh,
a little bit of excitement around that, though, isn't there? When you're a teenager and you're away on a holiday with one of your mates and you're trying to impress some girls that are playing playing pool.
I
which is
don't know
horribly
why.
wrong.
Can you hear me now? Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. For some reason, it times out after 90 minutes, I think. But yeah. No, I didn't hear what you said. I did do a Sid James laugh, but I don't think you heard it. I don't know if a flirtatious comment was made, so I just went.
That was good too.
I can do a decent Sid James laugh. So swatted Palace 5-0 through to the League Cup final, which a column will be able to tick off shortly. Did we have any FA Cup games around about this time? We did, but we had the league game first.
wasn't it around the time we beat Leeds?
It was. We won 2-0 at Leeds, which was a very impressive result. And I remember it being one of the few occasions where the referee booked a Leeds player for dissent, and to Gary McCall.
Have we lost Dan again?
It's lost again, yeah.
Oh.
I'll come in on that because I was at that game, that Leeds away game, and
Okay.
it was like the best away limbs I've ever been part of. I think.
Yeah,
like
so when you watch it on the telly, I'd like to think, even though it looked amazing, it wouldn't do it justice for what it actually was like. Yeah.
No, I think
we
I
would have
ended
got
up
the
about
whole
6
end,
rows
wouldn't we?
down.
Yeah,
we did. We got the whole end, and it was nip and tuck that game all the way through. And I think Barbie scored first, didn't he? And then Heskey got the second one just a couple of minutes later, and it was that was one of my favourite ever away games. That because, like I said earlier, it's like it was right around the start of that budding rivalry with Leeds that burned hot for a couple of years while they were battling for Champions League football, and they were onto a good thing with that young O'Leary team with like Bowyer and Harry Kewell and who else did they have?
Rio Ferdinand was he?
Rio Ferdinand.
Alan Smith and
Paul Robinson.
Paul, yeah.
My boys. Did you hear what I said? That I think the microphone cut out again when I said
the dissent.
Yeah, who was it? And who got booked? I'm gonna guess it'll be Lee Bowyer though.
What's this for? Sorry.
The Descent, who got booked? For
I think it was Lee Bowyer.
Yeah.
When I think about it, but so you heard the bit about the dissent, yeah.
Yeah.
Gary Matt getting the ball moved forward on him. The only time I ever remember that happening, and we didn't want it to happen.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So that was a very impressive way. That was a point where I was starting to think, we're on to something here. There's a chance that we can go on and win this. So that was the 27th of January. We played City at Main Road, and we drew with the Danny Tiato inspired Man City. That's 2 consecutive games where we dropped points. Started February in good form. Beat West Ham 3-0 at Anfield. Can you remember the scorers, John?
Vladdy definitely scored one.
He did.
Fowler.
Yep.
I can't remember who scored the other one. Maybe
Fowler.
Who?
Fowler.
Babel. Right.
Fowler. Fowler got 2.
Fowler got 2, right,
Yeah.
okay. I remember Titi and Rigobert came back for that game, though. I think they got a good reception on that.
Yeah. Disappointing 1-1 draw at Sunderland, and a 2-0 loss at Leicester, inspired by Adi Akinbaye and Muzzy Is It.
Muzzy Is It.
Yeah, that Leicester game takes us into March. Presumably there was an international break to consider. So we beat Man City 4-2 in the FA Cup. I remember that game very well.
What was happening in the UEFA Cup? Was that the Roma game, was it, around this
the Roma game was before that, yeah. So we'll just skip, because we were playing Sunday, Thursday again at this point. And again, there's a little tick downward in results. So we won the first leg 2-0 in Rome.
My first European away, that.
And what a defensive display that was, because they were a good team at the time. Can you remember the referee? Very memorable named referee.
Kim Milton-Nielsen.
Marcus Merck.
Okay.
You've
I
been
just remember
merked
Kim
some-
Milton-Nielsen being a thing around that time. I don't know
Yeah,
why.
Kim Milton-Nielsen. But Michael Owen scored 2 in the Olympico. And
But again, that just ties into what Chris said earlier about the United game, and going away to an absolute crack European team. The Montella, Batistuta was there, wasn't he, at the time, if I remember rightly? With Totti had been there,
Yeah.
We're just talking absolute Italian legends, and Capello, the manager. I think
selector.
though like this when Serie A was actually a formidable league. I mean, you go to Italy now when it's like shrug of the shoulders. Sadly, it is sad.
Serie A was where the money was, John, at that time.
Yeah, I mean, it's sad what's happening, the state the league's in now. Some of the Premier League rejects are getting games for the bigger sides there and stuff. But back then it was the league, and it had a lot of the top players playing for it, and to go to Roma and win 2-0 was, you're like, oh my God, it was just you think back to Liverpool away European games back in the 80s and the 70s when Paisley and all that was the manager. That's probably that type of performance that you would have got back then.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I remember being just completely captivated by that. It was my first ever European away trip. Did a day trip. And it all worked. It's funny the way life works is that I'd applied to go to uni. At the start of that season, I'd finished sixth form and I'd applied to go to uni at John Moores for the journalism course. Didn't get into that. I ended up getting in the following year, but I didn't get in. And I decided instead of going somewhere else, I had my heart set on Liverpool, and I was going to get my English grade up and try again the following year. And so what I did is I just stayed at home and worked for a year and lived basically rent-free at my parents' house. Well, earning enough money to get by on, and got to go to 3 European aways with Liverpool instead. Brilliant. Which definitely wouldn't have happened if I'd have got into that uni place in the first place and was on student money. So, it all worked out, and it ended up being one of the best years of my life, probably the best year of my life following Liverpool. And that day trip to Rome, man, the excitement. I'd never left the country before that either. It was my first time on an aeroplane and my first time leaving the British Isles. So it was just one of those sort of seminal moments where you're coming out on your own, and it's just brilliant. The atmosphere in that stadium was unlike anything you'd ever seen. It was our own little piece of the European magic that we'd sort of grown up watching on the VHS tapes and later the DVDs of when are we ever going to get a taste of this? Do you know what I mean? All the stories you'd been told that you'd read back in books, in the fanzines, that kind of stuff. And this was my first opportunity to really experience that in real life. And I've got to say, I just absolutely loved every second of it. And going there was one thing, being in the stadium but winning as well. To go there and win 2-0 against Roma on that night was just one of the best days of my life by a mile. It was just such a fantastic memory.
And they played the United game at the end, Chris, didn't they, on the big screens? Yeah. Because
they obviously didn't let us out for ages. Because there was a little bit of trouble in the ground. Were you there as well, John?
No.
But there was a little bit of trouble in the grounds. Once we went ahead, the seats started coming over the little barricade, and the Rome riot police obviously took a run at us then to get us back away. It was quite scary, really, but nobody came to any harm or anything. They just kind of created some separation between the two sets of fans. And I think there'd been some incidents in the city during the day, hadn't there, or something? I think it was that one where a couple of our lads had been swiped at or something. I might be wrong. It might have been a future trip to Roma, but so they obviously kept us in the ground a lot longer after the game, and they played the whole 90 minutes of the Old Trafford game. So
nice
kudos to whoever made that decision. Yeah, it was awesome.
And that was one of our best performances of the season. I think you can throw the Carling Cup final in as one of the worst ones, but that was the next game. That was the first pot. Managed to beat Birmingham 5-4 on penalties, but it was not easy. It was not easy at all. It was a gruelling game. I remember that. It was a really grueling game. We were obviously very tired after our exploits in midweek. Have any of you got any? Have either of you got any recollection? I can't talk. Have either of you got any recollections of that? Where I go and have a quick wee.
Yeah, I mean, obviously touched on earlier, Fowler, that could have been a winning goal for him in a cup final for Liverpool, but you know, he's Birmingham scored late on, didn't he? It was off a corner. I can't remember their goal, whether it was off a corner.
It's a penalty, John.
It was a penalty, wasn't it? Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and it
Yes.
was a set piece of some description. Yeah, there was a Honcho give the pen away, was it? If memory serves.
Yeah.
I know you mentioned it, Chris. Yeah, so I mean, sort of the weight of pressure was against us more than them. It was like a free hit for them, wasn't it? It was like, you know, they were just happy to be there. You know, and whatever happened. But with us, 6 years without a trophy, just to get that one over the line was like massive in terms of like the momentum it gave us, you know, for the rest of the season. Because every game at that point it felt like was massive in different ways, just for 4 months, wasn't it? Obviously, it started with that Roma game. It felt like, right, the season's really kicking into gear. You know, you've had your Carling Cup semis against Crystal Palace, who you'd expected to beat over 2 legs, and you know, I know we sort of got to that point in Europe, but then you're playing Roma. You know, you're not playing Olympiacos, who were not a bad side, but you're playing Roma, who were like an absolute, like, you know, the Serie A champions that season. And that's when, obviously, levels step up then, don't they? And the team sort of responded brilliantly. You know, because when you think about it, we played, I think we're the only team ever, twice now, to play every game that you can play, aren't we? Into, you know, Houllier that season. And then Klopp in 2022, and we played every game that you can possibly play in a season. So yeah, I mean, it was just like you could just feel the momentum building. It was exciting, wasn't it? You're like, oh, so now we've just won a trophy there. Now we're playing whoever on the midweek in a European game or whatever it was, and then the league was massive, obviously, because of the Champions League, because I think that was the big one for Houllier, wasn't it? Just like to get us into the Champions League. You know, the players would have had their own goals of what they wanted to achieve. Like, you know, Michael Owen would have been a Fowler. They want to win the FA Cup or whatever. But for Houllier, it was about winning a European trophy and getting in the Champions League. But obviously, for the traditional British players, it would have been winning the FA Cup.
That's a really good point you make as well, John. Like, why that season felt momentous. Qualification for the Champions League is kind of something now that you look at and think, oh, okay, well, that's the minimum acceptable target. But at that point, we'd never played in it. We'd never played in the European Cup in that format. Like, we'd been completely, like, obviously it was first the qualified and then first and second. They gradually expanded it, but you know, after the ban, we weren't back in the European Cup. So that's why getting in it, why that end to that season felt so massive, because that almost felt like a bigger target as going far in those cups, because we wanted to be back at that top table. I just mentioned this was my first European away of going to watch Liverpool in Europe, because we'd been on that barren run throughout my time following the Reds. Well, I wanted to play in the European Cup, the competition I'd seen us win 4 times on VHS already. You know, it was a big thing for us to get back into that tournament again.
Well, this is it, and that's obviously set the wheels in motion for what happened 4 or 5 years later. I mean, without getting in it that season, you know, you wonder how, say if we'd have come up short at the end and won the 3, or say just won the 3 cups, that sounds so bad, but if we'd have won the 3 cups and missed out and Leeds would have got in, where does that go down the annals of history in terms of what happened like 4 years later in Istanbul? I mean, is that even a thing? It's sort of sliding door moments, really, isn't it?
Yep.
Yeah.
Hugely. There's some luminary names in this Birmingham City shootout, by the way. Darren Pearce, Stan Lazaridis, and Andy Johnson, he of Everton fame.
I mean, he was a decent Premier League player, wasn't he? To be fair,
he was. He had a good season at Crystal Palace when they signed him. I didn't hear most of what you said because I was away having a tinkle. But it was a tough. That was a tough game. And we were clearly very tired and just showed our class in the shootout. Ultimately, I remember Trevor Francis whinging about something, but that's a day.
I think there could have been. Birmingham did have just cause to possibly get a penalty in extra time.
Yeah, that was just before extra time, wasn't
it? If I remember, I think it probably was a penalty.
I just watched it back. It was.
Yeah,
it was
exactly. Who was it, Chris?
Andy Johnson. It was Honshaw and Andy Johnson.
Honshaw in Cardiff, Jesus.
We'll get on to that. I remember Trevor Francis morning, and to be fair, it sounds like he had just cause, but I still don't like him, so not bothered. So then we move into March. I think that was just before an international break. We move into March. We had the disappointing 2-0 loss at Leicester. We have a big gap between that game and what's going on here, because there's a big gap. Not too sure what's going on there, but we had. Let me get the games in order. So we've got Porto away, which was at the time not an easy game. You know, like Porto were a more established European team at that point than we were.
Dan, sorry to interrupt you, mate, but we got to talk about Roma at home.
Oh, of course, yeah.
The one we got away with big time.
That was just before the final, wasn't it? So 3 days before.
It was inevitably going to happen at some point, though. I was going to get my games mixed up because I've got 4 different articles open and it's impossible to keep on track. Yeah, that was our only loss in the UEFA Cup that season. And we were hanging on big time at the end.
The penalty that got given and then turned into a corner.
I remember. I think it was Damiano Tomasi screaming at the referee, and the referee saying, "Go away or I'll book you. Go away or I'll book you. Go away or I'll book you." Right, and he booked him.
Didn't he book like 5 or 6 players, Dan, or give some of them 2 yellow cards? And it was a bit of a.
It was a very quintessential
chaotic situation, wasn't it?
It was what I would call like an Atletico Madrid kind of meltdown.
I mean, they had due cause as well.
Yeah,
he'd given a penalty, he pointed to the spot, and then all of a sudden starts pointing to the corner flag, and nobody could really figure out what was going on at all. And I didn't
missed
think I'd
a
ever seen
penalty as well,
like that. Which was given for fuck all. Like we got absolutely it was the softest penalty you'll ever see.
Some proper names in this Roma team. Jonathan Zabina, Vincenzo Montella, Damiano Tomasi, Walter Samuel, Marco Del Vecchio.
Jeez.
I remember in that game, the very last action of the game, the ball went about 25 foot in the air in the penalty box, and Westerveld started to come through. And I remember my dad saying, "Oh Jesus Christ!" But he came, and I think if I remember correctly, he punched it away. But it was proper. Even though we were down, they were down to 10 men because Tomasi got sent off for his protests. We were hanging on at the end of that game. But it's no surprise when you look at the players that Roma. I've just listed the players that Roma had. It was a fantastic achievement to get through against them over 2 legs. But it was inevitable that they were going to come and have a go at Anfield. But they didn't score till the 70th minute. And if we'd have scored that penalty, then we would probably have been able to pick them off on the break.
Did Owen hit the penalty wide, if I remember?
I think it was saved.
It was saved.
Yeah.
It was saved, was it? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Right, now we've covered the Roma home, and that penalty was incredible. I've never seen anything like that since, either, by the way. I've seen referees change their mind because of VAR, but referee making his decision on the field and going, actually, no, it's a corner. I don't recall seeing that. Cue lots of blue nose screaming.
But again, that's a sliding doors moment, isn't it? I mean, that penalty it just made you think momentum was just building, wasn't it? Piece by piece, game by game.
Yeah, as I've erroneously said, we drew 0-0 at Porto, which was a good result. We didn't show too much ambition in that game, but it was a European away game, so that was what we did, and got them back to Anfield. We played we played in between that game, and a quarter final at Tranmere, which is an unusual game. We've not played Tranmere since, have we?
No, I was at that game. I was actually with the Tranmere fans. Wasn't a pleasant experience, let me tell you.
Well, the locals were revolting. John, they also weren't happy.
Well, he'd knocked Everton out, hadn't he, the round before, I think. Or was it
so
2 rounds?
funny.
Was it 3-0? Jason Kumas inspired. So, yeah, they were pumped up for that game. And, Aldridge had them playing, effective football. It was the long throw merchant they had.
Dave Challoner,
yeah. We stood up to it generally well, though. All things considered, I mean, it was like, you look at it now, I mean, that football's in vogue now. What's Tranmere were playing back then? 25 years later. Yeah, that's what's happening now in the Premier League.
Bring back Wayne Allison. What's Steve Finney doing? We're not going back as well. But it was a good win, and it was nip and tuck for a while, but we went 2-0 up, got it back to they got it back to 2-1, 3-1. 3-2, and then we scored a penalty late on to seal that. So that was an unusual experience, that playing them. And then we beat Porto 2-0 at Anfield the Thursday after that. That was an incredible atmosphere. Now I'd started to go, and Mr. Nielsen refereed that game, John.
I knew he was a thing back then. Yeah,
yes. Well, I went to a lot more games in the later end of that season, because you've heard me mention the name Steve Haslam a few times on this podcast, and you won't know him, Chris, but he's been my friend from school since I can't even remember when, a long time. And his brother Paul, who works with Stu, he has the misfortune to work with Stu. He was in the Navy at the time, so I was having his ticket, so I got to experience the Porto game at Anfield, and it felt to me like we scored 2 goals, lickety-split, 2 goals in 4 minutes, and it felt like we were really going on to really getting momentum in that tournament. And I don't think the draw was made in advance then, was it? We didn't know who we were going to get. But we swept Porto aside, and we always seem to sweep Porto aside. That's one of Porto's less embarrassing results against Liverpool over the last 25 years. But I just remember that being a properly dominant performance against a team that was much further on in its European journey than we were. So that was the 15th of March. And then we had a disappointing 1-1 draw at home to Derby. Bloody Dion Burton score of all people. We then... I feel like I'm switching up quickly here, but the games have come thick and fast, because it's at that time we started to really get in towards the end game. So we didn't play Barcelona to April, so we can forget that. The FA Cup. We had an FA Cup semi-final. In fact, no, sorry. We beat Man United 2-0
before Barcelona, didn't we?
Yes, we did, yeah. And we
for the away leg in Barcelona, because I remember it was one of those games that it wasn't even the biggest game that week for both sides, you could argue, because I think they had a Champions League game against Bayern Munich, and
yes.
We had the Barcelona semi-final. So yeah, it was sort of like a bit of a, very rare you say, a bit of an afterthought for both teams at the time. I think it was an early Saturday game, wasn't it? It was a comfortable 2-0 win. Stevie and Fowler. So
what a goal
goals.
That was!
Yeah, even Fowler's goal was phenomenal. Way he took it down.
Yeah.
And then classic Fowler. Yeah,
went in front of the United fans, just doing that little low-key fist.
Yeah, just a little sort of, just understated little.
Yeah.
Not enough to really look like he's provoking them. Yeah, he had his head switched on there for a change, to be fair to him, in terms of celebrating in front of away fans he'd learnt his lesson from a couple of years before.
Yeah, then
Gary Neville falling over was a nice little cherry on the cake on that one as well. His little slip, and then, but that was our first league double over Man United since 1979.
Wow,
Jesus.
So, yeah, even when we were on top in the 80s, they were such a bogey team for us.
we outplayed them as well. We never really threatened to go on and make it 3-0, but we had to conserve ourselves and conserve energy because of the amount of games that we had. But we held them at arm's length. Again, I don't remember any nervy moments against them. And as John has already said, they slept water to the league that season, but they didn't get anything against us. They didn't even score against us in 2 games. Next up was Barcelona away. Could say a lot about it, but there's not really much to say. I know that Johan Cruyff wasn't particularly impressed. Look, we did what we had to do, right? We went and nullified one of the best teams in Europe. This is the mighty Barcelona. I know they hadn't won a European Cup at that point, but they were still the mighty Barcelona.
What players did they have? I know obviously Guardiola was playing for them then, wasn't he?
Rivaldo,
yeah.
Xavi.
Like Raja with the ball, was he been there around that time? I don't know. Clive, yeah. So yeah, some really like top names. Obviously not the Barcelona who obviously came to pass a few years later, but
it's even more impressive. Let me just read the team out. Pepe Reina in goal. I remember that. Gabri, De Boer, Puyol, Barjuan Sergi, Luis Enrique, Guardiola, Cocu, Overmars, Rivaldo, Kluivert, and on the bench they had Dutrell, who was the goalkeeper, if I remember rightly, De La Peña, Alfonso, Xavi, Emmanuel Petit, Danny, I don't remember who that is, and Bolo Zenden.
It was going well there till you said Bolo Zenden.
Yes, quite, yeah. Shudders of nightmares gone by. But we held them totally at arm's length. It was a very, very difficult game. It must have been exhausting for the players. But we went.
Yeah, well, this was it. Like the concentration levels, it was like we'd obviously elevated at that point of the season. It was a serious business end to the season, and one slip and you're out basically. So it was a high stakes. So you thought, we can absolutely trust this team now in these big occasions, these big games to get the required result. And obviously back then the whole away goal thing.
One mistake and you're dead.
Yeah, this is it. I mean, which makes the home leg even more impressive when you think about it, because it's easy to get a 0-0 draw away, but to stop them at home though in one slip, you're out the tournament. So to stop them scoring over 2 legs is some achievement, to be fair.
Between the Barcelona, sorry, Chris, go on, mate.
I went to the away leg, and the one thing that stands out to me of all the things I experienced that day is that they separated our fans into 4 different quadrants, and we put them in the rafters in each corner of the stadium. So it was impossible to get any proper chance going or anything, because by the time it made its way around to the other end of the ground, I just always thought that was a bit of a shithouse move from them. You're the mighty Barcelona, and you're breaking up the away fans into 4 separate portions of the ground, so they can't get any atmosphere, because I would assume that would have created a logistical pain in the arse for them to have away fans going in at 4 different entrances and coming out at 4 different exits. I just thought that was a little bit small time from them, really.
Yeah,
so the following year as well.
So it would have been 90,000, and we'd have had 500 fans in little segments of the ground, pretty much. Yeah,
pretty much.
Yeah, jeez.
90,832, John, refereed by Helmut Krug.
Is he German by any chance?
He was. Before we got to the Barcelona game, the games come so thick and fast in April. We played Wickham at Villa Park in that accursed semi-final. Oh my God, I was so bored of hearing about Laurie Sanchez. Literally sick to death of it. Because that was all the narrative. The reality is, for the standard that Wickham were playing at that time, they put up a great effort against a very good Liverpool team.
We sort of laboured for 70 odd minutes, I think, didn't we? It was a Fowler's free kick, was it? Was that the first goal?
That was the second.
Was it? Yeah.
It's almost like we'd had a high concentration, energy-sapping game against a very good European team on the Thursday before it. Got the job done through to the final, and I can now park the FA Cup until May. So in the league, it was high stakes, because we if we wanted to get that top 3, which we did, we needed to give it some. We drew 1-1 at Ipswich, which in the context of the season, wasn't a terrible result, but we did ship a late goal, which is always disappointing. And then the last defeat of the season, which was 2-1 at home to Leeds. And my abiding memory of that is that absolute smackhead just celebrating in front of the Leeds fans because they scored early. Ferdinand going off celebrating, doing his guns in front of the Leeds fans. Knobhead. But that gave us pretty much no wiggle room at that point. We had very little margin for error at that point.
That was the year. That's it, because Leeds were the team we were directly competing against, weren't we, for that last Champions League place?
Yeah.
Arsenal and United had the top two home and hose, but Leeds had pipped us the year before. So and after that, you're thinking, whatever it was, 5-6 games to go. You lose. It was a Good Friday game, that wasn't it?
It was, yeah.
And you're thinking, you are starting to be worried about whether we'll miss out again at that point, because Leeds would have had that little bit of momentum.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and we did claw it back, but we really struggled to get ourselves back into that game. Again, tiredness and fatigue playing its part, but we had to keep going because we then had one of the most memorable matches that I can remember. Everton 2, Liverpool 3, Merseyside derby on the bank holiday Monday. I remember at the start of the game sitting down to watch it, and the door went, and my dad had just got his tea, just sat down with it, and all you could hear was a door go, and then my dad went to the door, and I remember him saying, someone was at the door, and they said, "Can we talk to you about the Lord Jesus Christ?" And my dad said, "I'm going to stop you. Yeah, I'm going to stop you there." He said, "I'm watching the football. It's just about to kick off, and I'm just about to have my tea. All the best." And just closed the door. I remember that very, very well. Oh, bless him. He had a way with words sometimes, but he could also be very polite. I was not expecting the polite approach with that one, but that was what we got. What a game this was, and I think, Chris, on the podcast recently, you asked, or was asked, what was your favourite Merseyside derby moment? Beating them in the last minute. This will always be the one for me, because if we'd have drawn this game, we're probably not getting in that top 3. And that McAllister, it was a properly controversial game. Mr. Winter didn't have full control of it at all times, I must say. But was you there, John? This strikes me as the kind of game you'd have got to. Yeah, go on, tell me about it.
Yeah, it was a bit of the derbies then really developed. We'd had the Barnby derby early in the season. It's already developed like a real nasty streak at that point. And yeah, it was escalated that night, shall we say. It was just it was like the day, like around the Hillsborough anniversary, so like maybe
they interrupted a minute silence, didn't they?
Yeah. So
what about Heysel?
Yeah. So all that was part of it, and it was a very spiteful, nasty atmosphere. We touched on the cup game against United, didn't we, Dan? And the FA Cup anniversary one, the 1-0. It was that just sort of that edge to it, because it was a night game, so everyone had been out in the ale. So it was 6 o'clock kick-off, I think. Would that be right? I'm sure it was not like a night game, like 8 o'clock. It was more like a 6 o'clock.
It was an evening kick-off.
They'd all been out in the ale all day, so obviously that's doesn't bode well. It wasn't like an early kick-off where obviously it's a bit more liberated. I feel like it was just a real sort of spiteful edge to it, and obviously the Hillsborough silence and that, and the game was it was sort of, we played well like for the majority of the game. I mean, scored a good goal through Heskey, a good counter-attacking goal, went clean through, didn't he? And Everton basically, it was just long balls and diagonal balls. Ferguson was doing Ferguson things in derbies, just roughing us up a bit. And he scored, didn't he, as well? And then a Babel's goal that was said earlier about Babel just growing into the right back role. That was classic Babel that season, wasn't it? The goal that he scored. Again, it was another counter-attacking goal.
Lovely finish.
And He's got a hell of a finish, yeah. You know, I think the keeper, Fowler have a shot, the keeper like just palmed it out, and Babel's just running in on it, just led it the first
Outside
time,
of his
didn't
foot, wasn't
he? Yeah, so a lovely finish in that, but that I mean, Babel at that point was a mainstay in the side at right back. When we thought he might have come in as a centre back initially, but yeah, you know, then Everton got an absolute comical penalty that was just absolutely ridiculous.
Mr. Winter
decision.
did
Yeah,
have control of the game.
Yeah, there's nothing in that. You know, I think he said Hippier pushed Ferguson down.
Yeah, holding him down was what he gave.
Yeah, from a long throw. It was just absolute nonsense decision anyway. And so again, as you touched on there, Daniel, you know, it was sort of, is this the game that's going to cost us? So they would have absolutely fucking loved that, you know, putting a spanner in the works for us getting Champions League at that point. But, God, I mean, Paul Gerard had made a great save a few minutes before that from a McAllister free kick in a similar position. I can't remember the context. He made a great save anyway. So I think the second time a similar position. McAllister obviously gave him the eyes and went in the near corner, and it was just absolute fucking bedlam. It was unbelievable, and again, it just gave us that little kickstart when we really needed it to kick on them for the rest of the season, because it was no more tonic than the last minute derby winner in April to really sort of get you over the line.
Mm-hmm. And Dan, this podcast is like primarily about Gerard Houllier, right? Like what the abiding memory for me, and the one that stays with me,
His
I think about this all the time, his reaction, the look on his face of sheer just joy and wonder and happiness of what he just witnessed. Like, that's the takeaway image for me from that game. Yeah, the free kick saves. Yeah, Sammy Lee bouncing around on the field is brilliant. Gary Mack, like, his legend really begins from that moment onwards. But Houlier's face in that moment was just magic.
It's just as it beamed. It's just as, like, as I say, just that unadulterated joy on his face. Just you know, we knew how much it meant. Yeah, I mean, when I think of Houllier, that is probably the memory that, if I think of him looking back now, it's that still, isn't it? Just his mouth wide open, just you know, just pure joy in his face. Yeah.
And you've both touched on exactly what I would have said, but I tell you what a free kick that was as well. Just the opportunism that to just spot that and then just swing from that range, incredible.
Yeah, because he definitely had a free kick in a position just a little bit earlier than that, and I think Hippier, I think he might have played it into Hippier, and Paul Gerard made a great save, I remember, but it was in the exact same position, and obviously went for the shot this time, and you know, that was all she wrote. Yeah, it was an incredible moment.
We could do a podcast on just that game, but we'll move on. We went to the game at Anfield against Barcelona, the aforementioned Gary McAllister scoring the winning penalty, but that was a game refereed by Urs Meier. Her standing on the end. When I think about it, it was my first European Cup semi-final, but UEFA Cup semi-final, and it was incredible. And what a way we got over the line, just defending for our life, because we were under pressure. Barcelona were on us; they were a top team, and we held out and we stood firm, and we made us proud.
Just remember Westerveld's fresh air kick though, late on. Just don't know if you remember that.
Who? Sorry.
Westerveld.
Oh yeah. I do remember that. Yeah, he got booked as well in that game. I can't remember what for.
But yeah, it was just again all about concentration, wasn't it, and focus, and us being a serious football team then after years of fannying about for years and you know, embarrassing ourselves in Europe against, you know, not this version of PSG, you know, very moderate PSG as it was back in the sort of mid to late 90s. Celta Vigo, Strasbourg, Sparta, yeah. So this is it, a Bromby, just not having the Dan Eggen. But yeah, so this was it, you know, you're up against like top European teams round after round, and you're getting the job done. And as I say, just the commitment, the focus, the game plan, everything was just top notch. For a few months, from February onwards, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of green now, and we'll have to fly through the league a bit because we've got quite a lot to discuss still. So we beat Tottenham 3-1. Won those. We'll finish that off late on. That was after the Lord Merge show. Bless you, Chris.
Gesundheit.
Yeah,
I tried to mute myself, but couldn't get there in time.
You didn't mute yourself. You just nearly blew the microphone down the computer.
Yeah, I know. In trying to mute myself, I just moved
The
closer to
sneeze
the
was that
microphone.
loud, and all the way in Liverpool.
I remember this game on the 28th of April, away to Coventry. 1-2-0. Hippier scored a header from a corner, and Gary McAllister scored an absolutely sensational free kick, but did not celebrate because that was the goal that pretty much relegated his former team. I remember that very well.
I got a good memory of this game as well. We went to this one away, and I was sat at the front of the stand. Like there were two tiers, and I think there were a bunch more away fans below us, and we were in the upper tier, but it wasn't like a full tier. And we were battering them, like we absolutely twatted them that day, but the goal just wouldn't come at all. It looked like it was not going to go. It looked like it just wasn't going to go in for us. And at one point, I kicked the advertising board in front of me, and it was only a piece of wood that was nailed on, and it came away from the stand itself. So I spent the last 20 minutes with the police looking at me, holding on to this advertising board, hoping it wouldn't fall off completely to the ground, just desperately trying to hold up this big, heavy piece of wood that I'd kicked away, and thinking I was going to get chucked out if it was
nearly doing it Tamori catch by it there, way, Chris, yeah.
Yeah, almost, man. But then Sammy scored with 8 minutes to go, and all was well. I remember just celebrating the goal, just trying to jump while hold on to this piece of wood in front of me. So it's a bizarre little thing. My first and last ever trip to Highfield Road.
Highfield Road. We went to Bradford and righted the wrong from the previous season. 1-2-0, relatively comfortable. Owen and McAllister. McAllister's influence has obviously grown more and more and more as we've talked here. He was leading the lines, being that experienced head that we needed. Beat Newcastle 3-0 at Anfield, Michael Owen hat-trick. And we then managed to draw 2-2 with Chelsea. And Chelsea always seem to be a nuisance, when it's an important game, and it would have been important. We fluffed our lines, drew 2-2, which meant that we needed a win in our last game to get into the Champions League places.
Yeah, I mean, when you say fluffed our lines, Chelsea were a really good side. And Hasselbank, he's I think he scored 2, didn't he? I think.
Yes, he did. Yeah.
But Owen was absolutely flying at that point. He just come to the bubble at the perfect time, didn't he? Then Owen, I mean, that draw against Chelsea, and it was probably a good point because I remember the game and they were well in it. They gave us a lot of problems. I remember. So it's easy now to say in hindsight, but a draw against that Chelsea side isn't a bad result at all.
It left us needing to go and win on the last day of the season.
Which is all you can ask for, really. If you're in control of your own destiny, going
exactly.
into the last game, that's all you can ask for.
Yeah.
Owen's hat-trick against Newcastle as well, that's brilliant. And he seemed to I think he scored 3 hat-tricks against them, didn't he, for us? He was just fucking phenomenal against them. And like you say, he was really coming to the fore at this time, and obviously his biggest moment would still come, and we'll come on to talk about that. But it just surprised me this week with the club releasing that the shortlist for the greatest thing that they're doing at the moment, and you've got Michael Owen languishing down there in 24th or 25th, I think, and you've got Luis Suarez pushing towards the top 10, which to me is an absolute travesty if we're talking about the great Liverpool players. Absolutely. Michael Owen is probably the most underrated Liverpool footballer of all time. He was so good, and he's got trophies to back it up from this season. The disrespect that's on his name these days is absolutely remarkable. He's still, I think, one of the probably 7 or 8 best Liverpool players I've ever seen, and in this period, he was absolutely lightning. They closed the end of this season with 9 goals in 6 games. He fired us to the FA Cup, scored all those crucial goals to get us into position in the league. Like, he was absolute magic, and nobody could get near him. And for all the talk you hear about Suarez in 2013-14, Michael Owen was as good in this current period. Like, and he has the trophies to back it up. Like, you hear people talk about that 2013-14 team in these romantic terms, like they're so close and they're amazing. What they were basically Spurs that year that they almost won the league and Leicester won it.
Yeah.
They were a flash in the pan team that went close. Like, this was, and to have like Luis Suarez ranked so, I have no idea, because he dragged us through the mud in ways that basically only 2 or 3 other players have in the history of our club, and to have everybody fawning over him so constantly when he was there for just like, what was it, 2.5 years or something we got out of him. Tried to leave at every single opportunity he got, like dragged us through the mud. To have him ranked that highly, and if you're talking about best, it's something I can maybe understand, because for Liverpool, best is so much different than greatest. But if you're talking about greatest, to have Michael Owen all the way down there and to have this guy pushing the top 10 is an absolute fucking travesty to me. And I'm sure we'll hear, like, from the other people on the pod, we'll hear all this revisionism about how good Coutinho was, about how good fucking Daniel Sturridge was. You hear people talk about Daniel Sturridge these days. It's like he was the reincarnation of Rush, Aldridge, Barnes and Beardsley in one. Like, he was decent. He was a decent forward. But if you're talking about the strikers we had at this time, Emil Heskey ranks above Daniel Sturridge for me. Fowler and Owen definitely rank way above him as well. So I just want more respect put on Michael Owen's name. I know he didn't cover himself in glory with the way he left. He tried time and time again to get back. It didn't work out. Going to Man United didn't help him, but I don't necessarily resent him too much for that when the alternative was to go to Stoke. And he's made a bit of a tit himself in his post-playing career. But 2000 and 2001, which was, sorry?
Yeah, sorry, Chris. Yeah, just as a footballer, just judging in the football, absolutely everything you said. It's just rounds of applause. Yeah, spot
Thanks,
on.
Mate. I've been wanting to get off my chest for a while, and this is the perfect place to do it. So,
well, I honestly think that I prefer Owen over Fowler, just for the reasons that Fowler, just by association really, but he was part of the whole Spice Boy era when teams had let us down constantly in big games, and Owen's producing in them big games, when it really matters. And Fowler, I don't think did he take it as serious in certain situations as he could have done. Maybe I don't know, but looking from the outside, I think if Fowler would have had Owen's dedication to be the best he can be, then maybe his career might have been different in some ways. I mean, but Fowler was just maybe a product at the time he was in as well.
Yeah. You often heard about how Fowler's career might have gone if he'd have been at Ferguson's United as opposed to Roy Evans' Liverpool and that kind of stuff. But yeah, what do you think, Dan?
I think that Dave is going to be coming gunning for you about after talking about Suarez.
This is why I've done it now, because I can do it without him overriding.
I just hope he doesn't edit it out after all that, Chris.
Yeah.
Yeah, after cutting the promo on Suarez and Dave edits it out. No, I'm sure he won't. No,
but you're absolutely right. Suarez brought a bit of disgrace on us with a couple of situations and that, and Owen never did that.
That's it. I think I have to equate Michael Owen with one of the best moments of my life, which we're about to talk about, because it's the FA Cup final against Arsenal. It's a perfect segue, in fact. He single-handedly won us that game. He was incredible. 2 absolutely top-notch finishes, because we got absolutely battered out of sight in that game by a very good Arsenal team. And it was a miracle we won that game. And we got a bit of luck, to say the least. Stefan Honcho should have been sent off for a flagrant handball on the line. They had one off the line. They battered us, and we just soaked them up and pinged them on the break twice. And I will always associate Michael Owen with that moment. I won't associate the comments that he made when he went to United. and I won't associate it with the cut price move to Real Madrid. I'll always associate Michael Owen with that game. Because I was there that day. I was actually scrubbed off the season review DVD, and I don't know why. Steve Haslam's on it celebrating. I was sat next to him. I'm nowhere to be seen. I can only think that I was gesticulating furiously at the Gooners.
That was pre-AI as well, Dan. You couldn't have been like erased and replaced with somebody else.
I've watched it back many times. I can't find myself. You know, like I'd never figured out that. But you can
the
see
existential question.
Yeah. Never mind the game. Why aren't I on the season review DVD? Damn it!
That game. I mean, it showed Gerard. Gerard spoke about it, hasn't he? He had levels to go. With Vieira, like he felt like he was a boy playing against a man that day, didn't he? He said it.
Incredible footballer, Vieira. Incredible.
Yeah. And it was just. It just felt like that. I don't know. People believe in football and fate or whatever, but. Just felt like that it was our time. Owen, it was obviously a little bit of pinball in the box and stuff. I mean, when they went 1-0 up, you're like, we didn't look like scored and you couldn't see anything happening. But, we just spoke about the form Owen was in. When strikers are in that vein, it just needs like anything slight to fall to them in the box, and Owen was just absolutely clinical, wasn't he? With that, but Fowler, looking back at that first goal, Fowler does deserve a lot of credit for just sort of just holding off someone for it to bounce down to Owen, who just led at it in the corner first time with his left foot. But that is a striker full of absolute confidence at that point, isn't he? The fact that he can take that first time on his weaker foot, and it just got placed in the corner. It was just incredible.
And I've said this a few times where we'd actually fallen behind to a Freddie Ljungberg goal, which
typical Ljungberg goal.
Yeah, it was exactly. It was a Freddie Ljungberg goal. That late run from midfield. We got battered that day and we got out of jail. But I mean that second goal, the ball from Paddy Berger, because when we equalised, Arsenal would have been looking at each other going, "How on earth have we managed to get into this situation?" And minutes later, they're behind. It's an absolutely incredible ball from Berger. And that's not Michael Owen's strength, his left foot, but he hit it straight in the corner. And that was bedlam. That was absolute bedlam when that went in. You mentioned limbs at Leeds before, Chris. This was the biggest limbs I would have been involved in at that time in my life. Jesus, what a finish, what a goal.
Well, 2 left-footed finishers, wasn't it? That's what I say. Yeah, striker at the peak of his powers at that point. That ended up with him getting a Ballon d'Or to the next season. It was early hat-trick for England against Germany as well. But yeah, he was just there. I think that was the peak of his powers. That period, wasn't it? That was as good. He had like some brilliant moments after that, of course, but that was like the height of his powers, wasn't it? That 2001 period, wasn't it?
Yeah, phenomenal. And I think it was a sign of his improvement as well. How many goals he did score with his left foot that year. When you watch back the seasons in review, you kind of see things that you see the bigger picture as opposed to like seeing the highlights from a particular game. And there, 5 or 6 goals that season he scored with his left foot. He scored a good few with his head as well. He was really just becoming sort of, if you added his pace to his finishing ability and his positional sense, then you really did have arguably like the best striker in the world at that time.
Yeah, it was just cold, wasn't he? Absolute assassin. Best way you can describe him. Just the only player I can liken him to now is Harry Kane in a way. Just that, when everything just stands still in the box for him, he knows he's in control of what he was doing. Like Harry Kane's just got that knack about him now, hasn't he? Just that cold efficiency about him. That's what Owen was at the time.
Look at Kane yesterday. It's almost a carbon copy of that. What he did was what Owen did in that 2001 Cup final. Helped a struggling team with 2 incredibly, clinical finishes and got them over the line in a game they would have never won in a million years if he hadn't have done what he did.
Yeah. I mean, that's it. I mean, as you say, you've got a lot to be thankful towards Owen. I mean, he's won trophies, he scored goals in finals, and his legacy has been tarnished unfairly. It is sad that he probably feels that he's not welcome back at Anfield. I mean, you see these legends play, the so-called legends in these legends game like Torres and that. Michael Owen should be playing in them. He should be, you know, but he just gets such a bad rap, sadly, doesn't he?
Yeah. Dan, you mentioned it's the one thing that you think of when you think about Michael Owen. Do you not think of Tremendous, by the way?
Oh yeah, or perhaps running over rabbits and being gutted, as he once famously tweeted. If we move on then to the next small matter, the Westfalenstadion in Dortmund, eventually we overcome Alaves. It was an absolutely bonkers game of football. I don't know how on earth we managed to get ourselves into that. We worked ourselves into a shoot and managed to like get to a 4-4 draw after 90 minutes against Alaves, who we were clearly better than. But I just think that unusually for this team, it lost its bottle a bit, and we got nervous when we were in front. We were in front early on. Babel scored. All over the place defensively, Alaves. All over the place. They were 2-0 down after 15 minutes.
Do you think it might have been a little bit of complacency for the first time in a few months, Dan, though, as well?
Possibly. Get 2-0 up against them and think, right, well, we're going to see this out. And we did manage to get it back to 3-1. McAllister scored that penalty. Some of the Alaves defending was absolutely crazy. We made Cosmin Contra look like the second coming of Cafu. Yeah. Or any right back of your choice. They were tearing us apart. Jamie Carragher was getting tired in knots down his side, and before we knew it, it was 3-3. And I remember Barry Davis commentating that game, and he was in absolute shock at what was going on. It was absolutely crazy. Got ourselves 4-3 in front, and then with the last kick of the game, almost let that mank jabroni equalise. Again, Sandra Vesterveld flapping, and everyone stood there looking at each other. It's like, how on earth have we managed to let this happen? In the end, they ran out of players. They finished with 9 men. And no sooner did we do that, we won the game. Just break it down. How did we manage to work ourselves into a shoot against a team like that, boys? I just can't get my head around it. It was an incredible experience. It's probably apart from Istanbul, it's probably the most memorable European final. But Jesus Christ, what a mess we nearly made of it.
It was tiredness, probably, wasn't it? I mean, it was 3 or 4 days on from that FA Cup final.
That makes a lot of sense. Tiredness, fatigue.
I do think maybe a slight bit of complacency as well, because it looked so easy early on. You're just sort of thinking, okay, we can just go through the motions a bit, conserve energy. But this was the biggest game in their history, whatever they were. I mean, for Alaves to get to a European final, I don't know who they beat on the way to get there, but they must have beaten some half-decent sides like we did. So
they beat Milan, AC Milan, didn't they?
Right, well, there you go. I mean, obviously we beat Roma, and I'm assuming Milan wouldn't have been that far behind Roma in Serie A at the time. So,
just checking that. Oh, maybe they lost half of the players to Milan. I know Cosmin Contra and Alfonso Alves, Moreno ended up there.
Well, on the back of that was that done, at the back of that game. But so I don't know, I don't know who they beat to get there, but I mean, for them to get there, it was a massive achievement. That was the biggest game in their history. They obviously put everything into it. But even us not quite at our best for reasons touched on, you'd always expect us to get the job done, and we did. By hook or crook, we did it.
So they beat Inter. They beat Gaziantepspor. I don't know if I said that right. Lillestrøm, Rosenborg, Inter, Rayo Vallecano, and Kaiserslautern.
Right, so not exactly the opposition we beat, but
no.
Apart from Inter Milan, maybe. I'm assuming Inter must have been a decent side then, but
going to win and going and winning it into 2-0, which they did, not to be trifled with. But I mean, that was kind of, and again, when that goal went in, I don't know whether the feeling that I had was relief or elation, but it was just like incredible. This is just incredible. Never known anything like it, because we'd been starved of success at that time until this wonderful 2001 came along. And again, the picture of Jed lifting the trophy, he's clearly absolutely ecstatic.
That's another iconic image as well, isn't it? Just him stood there with the UEFA Cup, and beautiful picture.
Yeah, I mean, feel sorry for Fowler again there, as touched on earlier. That could have been another winning goal in a final for him, but right at the death of the game, as it was against Birmingham. He's just been caught short. But obviously, if Fowler did contribute, he scored like 17 goals that season. Not quite the Fowler of back in the 30 plus goal season days. Was more about, he was like the rotation option then, and that was his role at the time. But he did step up ably at certain points of the season.
That goal was a thing of beauty as well, though, wasn't it? The way he just skipped past a couple of defenders and planted it in the corner.
Typical left foot,
Outside
right at the end where me and Dave was sat behind, and I was just, if that had been the winner, that would have been the moment. And I remember getting home and Dan mentioned Barry Davis, and I was like, oh yes, that is boys' own stuff.
Do you want me to say one thing always stands out? Mark Lawrenson, the prick in the studio. So you've got Alan Hansen going crazy when we scored, and Lawrenson just sat there with like face like a smacked arse, and that's just another side thing. You like similar to yourself with Suarez, Chris, but Lawrenson getting. I know he had a gig at the club recently, doing the speech before the game. It's like, who wants to listen to that fucking bitter prick? You know what I mean? Yeah, not a fan.
No. He's not getting any commentating gigs on Pro Evolution Soccer anytime soon, I wouldn't have thought.
Yeah. But that night was some magical night, and you just can't believe what we've achieved. We've actually got the 3 cups, and you're thinking, it surely can't get better than this. It was just like, we still had the big game on the Saturday as well, which was probably from the club's perspective the most important one. For the fans, it's different. They just wanted to see the silverware again. I mean, I think if you just asked us all at the time what we'd have preferred, I dare say majority of us would have said just get the trophies, because we've been starved for so many years.
Yep.
Just it's all about the memories, isn't it?
And from the moment Fowler scored that goal, it was a procession. Once we made the breakthrough, we had a few nervy moments, but once we scored that goal, it was a lovely not an overhead kick, but it was over his shoulder, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was a lovely finish, and that set us on our way, and we emphatically went on. And once it went to 2-0, it was like, right, that's us done. But we kept on going and got the job done, and that just put the crown on a remarkable season, back into the Champions League for the first time since the 80s. And it just put the icing on top of the cherry on top of the cake.
Yeah, another image of Houllier I've got of that was when at the end of the Charlton game, and he looks up at the director's box, just giving them the little sheepish wave to say we've done it. We're back in Europe's premier competition. Yep. It's like the vindication, justification. Why he was brought in.
Who let the Reds out?
Man, that was a big thing during that season as well, wasn't it?
It was
fantastic.
Yeah. So, if we bring this to a close now, because we've been going for the best part of 2.5 hours, what would you like if you can pick your moment of the season? What would it be?
If I can start, for me, it would be. Being at the Westfalen Stadium, watching those players, arm in arm, singing "You'll Never Walk Alone" in front of us. There's a fantastic stadium there as well. That stand behind the goal was lovely, and I remember when the golden goal went in, not quite knowing how to react, because it was just so exhausted by it all by that point. And I don't think I really even celebrated the goal when it went in. It's just fully exhausted. But then it all hit during that moment of what we'd witnessed, possibly one of the greatest European finals of all time, only to be topped 4 years later so memorably. But just being there in that moment and witnessing all the things I'd grown up thinking I was going to get to experience watching Liverpool, and had to wait quite a long time to do it, and just it being worth, worth every heartbreaking defeat, worth every falling short, worth every moment of humiliation that happened along the way. And I know we can talk in these terms, but we're still Liverpool and we've still been competing throughout that period. So if you talk to someone like a Stoke fan about that, who'd never gotten anywhere near the lows or the highs, like they would be like, "Oh, what are you complaining about?" But we're Liverpool, and this is what you wanted to see. And finally, at this moment, at like a really crucial time in my life where I'd kind of just turned 18 and I was preparing to move to Liverpool that September to come and live there and just be completely fully immersed in it properly. That was my big takeaway from the season. What Gerard and the team had given us, how much hope I felt in that moment, how much just like pride in the team I'd felt for probably really the first time, just how we had a team to be reckoned with that could be really proud of, and a lot of hope moving forward from that historic season as well. So if I could isolate what that one moment is where it all came together with me, with the lads, with that trophy stood in front of us, swaying side to side, singing "You'll Never Walk Alone." Brilliant moment, one of the best moments of my life.
JG?
Yeah, I mean, with me, it's more of a culmination of the season as a whole, the crescendo it built up to be. I mean, obviously, you've got the finals, the three finals. They're like a bit obvious, if that makes sense. But yeah, I think for me, it's just what Chris touched on, the pride you started to feel in the team, the trust in the team. We're playing in the biggest games you can play in, from Saturday to Wednesday, Sunday to Thursday or whatever. And if every game mattered, and that was the first time it felt like that in my sort of, I'm old enough to remember winning the league in '88 and '90 and all that. But I was a kid then. I didn't really sort of appreciate it, but it was more like a procession anyway. But this was like this was our era. If where like sort of Chris touched on earlier, looking at VHS videos with the tapes nearly worn out of like European finals, this, that and the other over the years, but this was our time, and it just sort of paved the way. Dave brought the fanzine out the year before, and it's just paved the way for friendships to amalgamate over the years to come, with people coming together, because I mean, if we'd have never have won that treble, would TLW have took off the way it did? You think about it like that, don't you? It's sort of if we'd have just been a run-of-the-mill team, like finishing fourth and like continuous disappointments year in, year out. But Dave, that was the second year at TLW, and I think that was probably the best thing to happen to TLW as well, if that makes sense. So it's more of a culmination of different things for me rather than one specific moment.
Absolutely well said, mate.
Well, for me, it's been an easy decision. There's one out-and-out winner, and rather than waste time with a speech, I'll get on with the job of announcing the winner, who today has come first in this moment of the season. To see who the winner is in this competition that we've all come to today, wondering who indeed will have the moment of the season and who wins the prize of moment of the season. For me, it's Michael Owen's goal at Cardiff, the second one, because that was the first time I'd seen Liverpool win a trophy, and you knew at that point we were going to go on to win it. Arsenal were completely shell-shocked, completely done, and I will never forget that. That was the first trophy that I'd seen Liverpool lift live, and that was the moment that I knew, even someone as negative and pessimistic as me, knew that we were going to win. And I was there with my best mate, Steve, and I'll never forget it. It was the first time that I'd done much by myself. Me and Steve went to Cardiff alone on the coach. Barnes breakdown special for your benefit, John. And just, I don't have the words. My hair's just standing on end. That probably tells you all that you need to know. That was actually as good as it got under Gerard, and we'll cover the rest of his reign in a separate podcast, because we thought that was the platform to go on and win the league, and it almost was, and in many ways it feels like it should have been. But for people of my age, Chris, and you're not much older than myself. Sorry, John, you're out in front on that competition. This was it. This was the first kind of experience that we had of this, of winning trophies and of momentum. And I remember you saying, Chris, in 2014, and you probably don't remember this because it was such a throwaway comment, but I've always remembered it. Like you now know how the United fans felt drinking some serious Kool-Aid when they were winning week after week after week after week, and that was how the tail end of this season felt. Through the season, when you look at it, we were actually pretty erratic in places, but that April and May was absolutely incredible, and I will never ever forget this season. Any closing comments before that we break all of Dave's bandwidth?
I think it was a perfect way to go out, to be fair, Dan.
Yeah.
Seems like it seems. Go on, Chris.
I just say that, I think you guys are doing a brilliant job on this pod. I love listening to it and enjoy listening to it. Thanks so much for having me on as well. And because this was a super important season for me in my life, like, I just loved every second of it, and I'm feel really grateful to you lads for having me on, and so I can chat about it a little bit more. So thanks, and hope I didn't upset the flow too much.
Oh, it's an absolute pleasure, Chris.
Pleasure.
But I love hearing, like, other people's memories of such a significant season. I mean, some people say like the 85-86 is like the best season following Liverpool, bit before our time, but I think for ourselves that was such a tumultuous season for so many reasons, just the memories and sort of you moving up to Liverpool and stuff. I mean, that it was such a like happening time. You've got all your dreams and your aspirations and stuff, and Liverpool are winning trophies and looking really formidable and making you proud. And it's that'll always, no matter how many times I think of that season, will always absolutely be my favourite season, even though we've won leagues and European Cups and that.
Same, John, same.
And we've had amazing seasons, 98 points or 97 points, 99 points or whatever. There's just something about that season, being as young as we were, you've still got all these wide-eyed aspirations of what you want life to be. And, if you've got a good football team, that doesn't half help as well.
Same, John. I feel the exact same. And thank you very much for your kind words, Chris. Flattery will get you everywhere. And I told you wouldn't go too far with, I like stock margarine because I can close the 5 and mum's the word. Right, I'll leave it on my usual joke because I have to now. So, which female pop star can detect ionizing radiation? Lady Gaga. Right, that will do. Let's not drag the podcast down any further. Right, so we'll be back again, me and John, after a while. It's probably take you 3 hours to listen to this podcast, to be fair, and we'll cover the tail end of Houlier's reign. But thank you both for that wonderful trip down memory lane. Although I'm still fuming about Mark Viduka now. It's been 25 years and 26 years and I've still never got over that. Right, thank you very much, gents, and remember you can go to the liverpoolwear.co.uk. There's a forum, you can subscribe, you can buy a season ticket, you can do all of the kinds of things, but remember, I've definitely not sold out. Thank you very much, guys.